Chapter 38-35. However, the stone door was closed and had yet to open. In front of the stone door, a group of people looked at the stone door, their faces full of anxiety. It was White-Eyed Wolf and his group. Longchen was no exception. He didn't care about the safety of the dragons, because he was born as a dragon of the ancient world. And the dragons of the ancient world had nothing to do with the dragons of the Sky Cloud realm. Therefore, he didn't have any sense of belonging to the dragons of the Sky Cloud realm. But Longzun and his daughter were both dragons. Therefore, he couldn't help but worry about the safety of Longzun and his sister. The exit hasn't opened yet, so it's useless for us to worry. While Qin Feiyang and the others haven't arrived yet, everyone should hurry up and comprehend the profound laws. The yellow-robed old man in the land of the buried gods spoke. With a wave of his hand, he set up a time array and integrated it into the ground under his feet. That's right. Instead of worrying here, it's better to calm down and cultivate diligently. Although it won't be long before Qin Feiyang and the others arrive, every little bit counts. Sea Lion Emperor nodded. Heard of it. Everyone calmed down the impatience in their hearts, and sat cross-legged on the ground one after another. But at this moment, Longchen raised his eyebrows. What's wrong? White-Eyed Wolf stood beside Longchen and noticed Longchen's abnormality. He asked suspiciously. Longchen and Sky God Sword secretly communicated for a while before looking up at White-Eyed Wolf and Princess Huofeng. He shook his head and smiled. The three Demon Kings still haven't reacted. What do they want to do? White-Eyed Wolf and Princess Huofeng were curious. They want us to kill the two of you here, as well as Tanwu, Hellhound and Fire Qilin. They also said that they want to keep your corpses for Qin Feiyang and Madman to see. Longchen shook his head. The plan is a good one. After all, now that we're leaving the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, no matter who it is, they will come to the exit. Princess Huofeng nodded and smiled with appreciation. Waiting for the rabbit by the tree stump is indeed a brilliant plan. Unfortunately, they found the wrong person. The White-Eyed Wolf sneered. Suddenly, he rolled his eyes and looked at Princess Huofeng and Longchen. He smiled mischievously and said, "Why don't we put on a good show for him? After all, they put in a lot of effort to kill us. We should at least give them something in return." What show? Princess Huofeng was suspicious. The ingrate moved closer to the two of them and whispered into their ears. As Princess Huofeng and Longchen listened to the White-Eyed Wolf's plan, their expressions gradually became strange. In the end, when the White-Eyed Wolf finished speaking, both of them could not help but roll their eyes. Perhaps only this fellow could come up with such a rotten idea. As time passed, Chaos Imperial City. The last undead successfully transcended the tribulation. Please thank Brother Qin on my behalf. If I have the chance to come to the Sky Bell Divine Treasury again, this old man will definitely repay his kindness today. This undead was an old man. He looked at Li Zhongxing and the others with gratitude. Okay. When he comes out of seclusion, we will tell him. You take care too. Xiao Shui smiled. Then we'll meet again. The old man cupped his hands and flew into the sky. He flew out of the Chaos Imperial City at lightning speed, but he did not leave immediately. He stood in the void and watched as the Chaos Imperial City left. He muttered, "Good people will be rewarded. The heavens will bless you." The old man bowed in the direction of the Chaos Imperial City, before turning to leave. On the city wall, Li Zhongxing, Xiao Shui, and the old poison looked at each other. They were finally done with their work. All these years, they were undoubtedly the most tired ones. Because there was no time array outside, they were basically busy every day. Just think about it. After being busy for more than 80 years, even if they were made of iron, they would not be able to take it. However, they persevered. On one hand, Qin Feiyang and the others would come to help when they were free. On the other hand, they were grateful to Qin Feiyang for giving them a new lease on life. The three of them heaved a sigh of relief. They looked at the ruler's divine weapons and cupped their hands. Thank you, lords. If not for the help of these rulers' divine weapons, they would not have been able to help so many undead undergo their tribulation. Naturally, they would not have been able to earn so many law miniatures. The six rulers' divine weapons were very cold. They did not say a word and directly turned to leave. We have been together for more than 80 years. Why are they still so cold? Li Zhongxing muttered. Don't think that we have grasped the ultimate profundities of the strongest laws, and have rulers' divine weapons. In front of them, we are nothing. Xiao Shui shook her head and smiled bitterly. This was because of Qin Feiyang and the others. Otherwise, not to mention working with the 6 rulers' divine weapons for so many years, they would not even be able to see them. Ignore them. As long as you follow Qin Feiyang with peace of mind, believe in this sovereign. The ruler's divine weapons beside you will surpass them sooner or later. And with your own strength, this sovereign cannot guarantee that you will surpass the divine king of primal chaos in the future, but surpassing the demon kings is easy. The Ice Phoenix sword and the other rulers' divine weapons landed in front of the 3 of them, and said domineeringly. Xiao Shui nodded and smiled. It's been hard on you guys. Looking at these rulers' divine weapons, Xiao Shui's heart ached. Although she and Li Zhongxing were tired, at least they did not have to face the heavenly tribulation. But Ice Phoenix sword and the other rulers' divine weapons had to fight against the heavenly tribulation at all times. One had to know. This was a heavenly tribulation, not a game. The pressure these rulers' divine weapons had to face every day was obvious. It's fine. It's been hard on you guys too. However, I still have to trouble you guys a little more. Categorize all the law miniatures, sort them out, and hand them over to Qin Feiyang. Ice Phoenix sword laughed. Okay. Xiao Shui nodded. Whoosh. The 10 rulers' divine weapons flew into the castle with a whoosh and disappeared. Xiao Shui and the other 2 looked at each other, put away the table and chairs, and entered the castle hall. They comfortably brewed a pot of tea, drank tea, and sorted out the law miniatures. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the Myriad Peaks Ridge, the Black Flame Demon Castle suddenly received news from the Heavenly God Sword. The White-Eyed Wolf and Princess Fire Phoenix had died in the Myriad Peaks Ridge, and as the 3 Demon Kings wished, they kept their corpses. Upon hearing this news, the Black Flame Demon Theta Wang and the others were stunned for a moment. Then, as if they had been injected with chicken blood, they became abnormally excited. Finally, they killed Qin Feiyang's 2 companions. They did not doubt the authenticity of the news. Even now, they couldn't wait to rush to the Myriad Peaks Ridge, because they already couldn't wait to see the scene of Qin Feiyang and Madman looking at the 2 corpses with their own eyes. That scene of inconsolable grief. Although they had only killed the White-Eyed Wolf and Princess Fire Phoenix, in their opinion, it was already worth it to give Long Chun and the others the law inheritance and law miniatures. Another period of time passed. The Heavenly God Sword sent news again. It told the 3 Demon Kings that Tan Wu, the Infernal Divine Hound, and the Fire Qilin had been killed one after another. Their corpses were now in the plaza at the entrance of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. The 3 Demon Kings were undoubtedly even more excited. In the next few years, whenever they looked at the ancient castle, a bright smile would appear on their faces. But was that really the case? Perhaps only the White-Eyed Wolf and the others knew. As for the Fire Qilin, Tan Wu, and the Infernal Divine Hound, since the Heavenly God Sword had already sent out this news, it must have rushed to the entrance of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. Time was like sand between the fingers. That evening, a terrifying aura suddenly surged out from the ancient castle. This was the aura of the law of life and death. With the emergence of this aura, everyone was awakened from their seclusion, including the Divine King of Primal Chaos. Whoosh, accompanied by the sound of something breaking through the air. Snow Queen and the others were the first to appear. They stood above the city and looked at the ancient castle, their eyes filled with shock. Was this a sign of a breakthrough? Following closely, the Black Flame Demon Theta Wang and the others also appeared, their faces filled with shock. This aura, how could it be the law of life and death? Because they didn't know that Qin Feiyang had also grasped the law of life and death, they all thought that it was an illusion. Although Frenzy and the others didn't walk out of the ancient castle, they were all gathered in the main hall of the ancient castle, nervously waiting for Qin Feiyang's appearance. The law of life and death was different from other laws. Even if it was only comprehending the law of life and death, it was enough to shock the world. Boom. The law of life and death became even more terrifying, like huge waves surging above the ancient castle. It really is the law of life and death. What is going on? Among them, there is actually someone who has grasped the law of life and death? The bloodthirsty demon Theta Wang found it hard to believe. As an expert of their level, they naturally knew how terrifying the law of life and death was. Using the simplest example, the divine king of primal chaos could become the ruler of the sky bell divine treasure, because she grasped the law of life and death. Because she grasped the law of life and death, the divine king of primal chaos was recognized by the primal chaos royal city. With the primal chaos royal city following and protecting her, no matter how hard the 10 demon kings tried, they couldn't shake her position in the sky bell divine treasure. Of course, this couldn't deny the strength of the divine king of primal chaos. At this moment, another person who grasped the law of life and death actually appeared, and it was their opponent. One could imagine how bad the 3 demon kings' mood was. Who is it? The 3 demon kings suddenly looked at Snow White Queen and the others. I don't know. The 6 of them shook their heads. You really don't know? The 3 demon kings didn't believe it. They had sent their sovereign weapons to help Qin Feiyang. How could they not know the background of this group of people? The 6 demon kings looked at the law of life and death in the sky above the ancient castle, and remained silent. The law of life and the law of death, these 2 forces that were originally incompatible like fire and water, were now connected by blood in the sky above the ancient castle. There were no signs of rejection. Terrifying auras crazily surged in the surroundings. Although this aura wasn't very strong in their eyes, there was a sense of oppression that couldn't be ignored. This was the oppression from the law of life and death. The law of life and death surpassed all other laws. Thus, any law would be suppressed in front of the law of life and death. No one could escape this. The law of life and death was the king of all laws in the world. Suddenly, the law of life and death in the sky above the ancient castle condensed into a huge boundary. The boundary was alternating between black and white, and a huge dragon coiled above it. This huge dragon was also condensed from the law of life and death. Whether it was its eyes or the dragon scales on its body, they were half white and half black, giving off a sense of danger. Supreme profound life and death divine domain. Who is it? Bloodthirsty demon Theta Wang and the others opened their eyes wide in anger. They didn't expect it to evolve into a supreme profound. If it was the first or second profound, they could still accept it. However, the supreme profound was only one step away from the ultimate profound. The current divine king of primal chaos had only reached this level. Chapter 38-36. At this moment, Madman and the others also ran out of the castle, and looked up at the life and death dominion in the sky. How enviable! Madman muttered. He could clearly sense that the supreme profundities of the various supreme laws were as insignificant as ants in front of the life and death dominion. There's nothing to be envious about. Yinxiang shook his head and sighed. Who didn't want the laws of life and death? But in this world, how many people could activate the laws of life and death? Blood Ancestor chuckled. Work hard, it's not like you don't have a chance. Chance. Madman smiled bitterly. If it was something else, he was confident that he could do it if Qin Feiyang could. But only the laws of life and death made him feel powerless. Because in these years of seclusion, he had tried to comprehend the laws of life and death. However, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't step into the threshold. He couldn't even step into the threshold, let alone comprehend the laws of life and death. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Azure Dragon's face was full of smiles. Madman looked at Blood Ancestor and Azure Dragon and said, "Why do you look happier than us?" Of course. Qin Feiyang is the descendant of the Human Emperor and the Feather Emperor. How can I not be happy to see him have such achievements? Azure Dragon smiled. Blood Ancestor said confidently, "In time, this child will definitely surpass the Human Emperor and the Feather Emperor, and become the #1 leader of the human race." Why didn't it include you? Are you still confident that old Qin won't be able to surpass you in the future? Madman looked at him teasingly. Hearing this, Blood Ancestor's face darkened. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak. Madman bared his teeth. It's not them. Could it be? At the same time, when Madman and the others came out of the castle, The three demon kings had been staring at them. But in the end, they found that the source of the laws of life and death wasn't these people. Everyone around Qin Feiyang had come out at this moment. Only Qin Feiyang himself was still in the castle. Therefore, a terrifying thought crawled in the minds of the three demon kings. Could it be that the person who controlled the laws of life and death was Qin Feiyang? This was the last thing they wanted to see. It could be the blood progenitor, the azure dragon, or even Yin Xiang, but it couldn't be Qin Feiyang or the mad scientist. There was only one reason. The two of them were too arrogant in front of them. They didn't want to see the two of them become stronger. Furthermore, as long as one wasn't an idiot, they could see that Qin Feiyang and the madman had the best relationship. They weren't blood brothers, so no matter who controlled the law of life and death, it would be a fatal threat to them. However, the person who controlled the laws of life and death was Qin Feiyang. This was something they found hard to accept. Ding! Suddenly, accompanied by a deafening dragon's roar, the giant dragon formed by the power of life and death immediately shattered the sky. With a monstrous aura, it roared at the three demon kings. Madman and the others were stunned and quickly turned their heads to look. Only then did they realize that all 9 demon kings were there. Immediately after, they looked at bloodthirsty demon Theta Wang, and the others with a trace of playfulness in their eyes. Qin Feiyang was obviously deliberately provoking the three of them. If the three of them couldn't help but attack them, they would be punished by the heavens and be destroyed. This way, they could get rid of these 3 disasters before leaving. Sure enough, when the 3 demon kings saw this scene, their eyes were filled with killing intent. Even now he was still provoking them? Boom! Demon King Black Flame waved his hand, and the ultimate meaning of the law of death was activated. The 18 layers of hell were like the birth of a demon king, and the aura of death immediately enveloped the entire city. Accompanied by a loud bang, the 18 layers of hell and the giant dragon collided. One was an ultimate meaning, the other was only a supreme meaning, but the two were in a stalemate in the void. What? Madman and Yin Xiang's eyes widened. They knew that the law of life and death was very strong, but they didn't expect it to be this strong. A mere supreme meaning was actually able to compete with the ultimate meaning of the law of death, and it was even on par with it. This was too ridiculously strong. Where was the justice? Boom. After a few seconds of stalemate, accompanied by an earth-shaking loud bang, the two ultimate meanings shattered at the same time. In other words, the two were really evenly matched. This is the power of the law of life and death. Even Blood Ancestor was dumbfounded. No one in the Sky Cloud realm had ever activated the law of life and death, so no one knew its true power. This was the first time he witnessed it with his own eyes. This was really beyond imagination. According to his thinking, no matter how strong the law of life and death was, it could at most crush other ultimate meanings of the same level. For example, the first ultimate meaning of the law of life and death crushed the first ultimate meaning of other ultimate laws. The supreme meaning of the law of life and death crushed the supreme meaning of other ultimate laws. But he never expected that it could actually fight across realms. If the supreme meaning was comparable to the ultimate meaning of the strongest law, then how terrifying would the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death be? It was hard to imagine. You are simply courting death. Demon King Black Flame stared at the ancient castle on the city wall with murderous intent. Don't be impulsive. They are about to leave the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, and the Blood Oath is about to lose its effect. If you make a move now, you will be obliterated by the Blood Oath. Moreover, didn't their companions die in the Myriad Peaks Ridge? As Longchen said, compared to killing Qin Feiyang, watching him witness the pain and despair of his companions dying is more satisfying. Demon King Feng Tian and Bloodthirsty Demon King saw that the situation wasn't good and quickly stopped Demon King Black Flame. When Demon King Black Flame heard this, a sneer flashed in his eyes. With a thought, he quickly retracted his aura. Madman and the others were surprised. He could actually endure it. They were a little disappointed. Tap, at this moment. Accompanied by a series of footsteps, Qin Feiyang walked out of the ancient castle step by step. He looked up at the life and death dominion, his eyes filled with shock. Even he didn't expect that the supreme meaning of the law of life and death would be so powerful that it could compete with the supreme meaning of an ultimate law. In other words, he had indirectly grasped the ultimate meaning of an ultimate law. Coupled with the ultimate meaning of the law of cause and effect, he should be able to fight against people like Dragon King. Aya. Let's break off our friendship in the future. Madman shook his head. Huh. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Madman. What did he mean by that? You have become so strong. How can I still have the face to continue being brothers with you? Madman sighed. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he couldn't help but roll his eyes. With a wave of his hand, the life and death dominion dissipated. That's it. Madman was stunned. Logically speaking, shouldn't he be comforting him? What else do you want? Me kneeling and begging you. Brother, don't go. How can we continue being brothers? Qin Feiyang angrily glared at him. This is not impossible. Why don't you kneel and beg me to take a look? Madman smiled. Get lost. Qin Feiyang's face turned black. He really wanted to drown this bastard with his spit. Swoosh. Suddenly, bloodthirsty demon Theta Wang flew over and landed in front of everyone. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said with a smile, Long time no see, Three Lords. How have you been? Thanks to you, we are doing very well. Feng Tian Demon King chuckled. What's the situation? Why is his attitude so friendly? Madman and the others were surprised. This wasn't the style of the three Demon Kings. Feng Tian Demon King said, We are about to reach the Myriad Peaks Ridge. Shouldn't you give us the promised undead breakthrough pill? We are about to reach the Myriad Peaks Ridge? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Yes, there are still at most 3 days left. Feng Tian Demon King nodded. I didn't expect to spend so much time in seclusion this time. Qin Feiyang muttered. I really want to beat you up. The supreme profound of the law of life and death. Not to mention a few years, even if it takes decades, centuries, or even thousands of years, I am willing. Madman stared at Qin Feiyang with dissatisfaction. Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. However, although it had only been a few years outside, tens of millions of years had passed in the castle. If it took tens of millions of years to comprehend the supreme profound, then how long would it take to comprehend the ultimate profound? Just thinking about it gave him a headache. But fortunately, there was no need to rush to comprehend the ultimate profound of the law of life and death, because the ultimate profound of the law of cause and effect, plus the supreme profound of the law of life and death, as well as the ultimate profound of the law of light that the white-eyed wolf left for him, was enough for him to stand at the peak of the sky cloud realm. Moreover, things like the profound of the law of life and death also depended on fate and luck. What if he suddenly had an epiphany and directly comprehended the ultimate profound of the law of life and death? This wasn't impossible. Cough cough. Seeing Qin Feiyang and the others treating him like air again, Feng Tian Demon King coughed in anger out of humiliation. Qin Feiyang regained his senses and looked at Feng Tian Demon King with a smile. Although I, Qin Feiyang, am not a gentleman, I am not a villain either. Of course, I will do what I promised you. In fact, he was hinting that compared to the three of them, he was simply a good person. That's good. Feng Tian Demon King nodded with a smile. He also heard the ridicule in Qin Feiyang's words, but when he thought about how they were about to reach the Myriad Peaks Ridge and see Qin Feiyang's painful appearance, he was too lazy to be angry. Then, please wait for a moment. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and led a group of people into the ancient castle. Along with a rumbling sound, the door was tightly shut. It seems that this is the reason why the Divine King likes him so much, Bloodthirsty Demon King whispered. After all, he is the second person besides the Divine King to open the law of life and death. Black Flame Demon King nodded. He really wanted to get rid of this kid, but unfortunately, he couldn't find the opportunity. As the Demon King of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, he had never been so aggrieved like now. With their strength, killing anyone was just a matter of waving their hands. However, this group of ants was clearly standing in front of them, but they couldn't do anything. Snow White Queen and the others looked at each other, shook their heads, smiled, and left. He was indeed a monster. They were also glad that they didn't choose to be enemies with this person like Theta Wang and the others. Otherwise, not to mention opening the door of potential, there might be another terrifying enemy in the future. No, it wasn't a strong enemy. Because when Qin Feiyang comprehended the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death, they wouldn't even be qualified to be Qin Feiyang's opponent. At the same time, in the main hall, the Divine King of Primal Chaos closed his eyes again. Little guy, you didn't disappoint me. Continue to work hard. Chapter 38-37. Inside the ancient castle, Qin Feiyang sat in the hall and looked at Xiao Shue's group with a smile. Tell me, how many nomological miniatures did you obtain this time? Aren't you going to refine pills for them first? Li Zhongxing asked. There's no hurry. Besides, I've cheated them twice in a row. Now that I have ready-made pills, there's no need to refine them. Qin Feiyang said with a smile while making tea. I see. Li Zhongxing was enlightened. Qin Feiyang looked at Daifuku and the others and said with a smile, sit down and drink tea. Why are you still standing? Could it be that I've comprehended the supreme profundity of the law of life and death, but our relationship has become distant? Daifuku and the others looked at each other and smiled before sitting around the table. To be honest, right now Qin Feiyang's body truly had the majesty of a superior. If it were someone unfamiliar with him, they would not dare to sit on the same level as Qin Feiyang without his permission. Xiao Shui sat opposite Qin Feiyang and took out an interspatial ring from her bosom and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang took the interspatial ring and placed it on the table without looking at it. Aren't you going to take a look? Xiao Shui was stunned. There's nothing to see. Just tell me. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. You trust me that much? Xiao Shui was surprised and asked. Aren't you afraid that I'll take it for myself? Don't doubt the people you use. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Hearing this, Xiao Shui could not help but feel a sense of admiration. This might be the charm of this person. As long as you trust him, you will trust him unconditionally. In this way, the trusted party will be touched and respect him more and more. Sister Shui, hurry up. Look at them. They can't wait any longer. Li Zhongxing glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others as he grinned and said. Xiao Shui nodded and took out an account book from her interspatial ring. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I've recorded the numbers of the various laws here. Just read it. Qin Feiyang said. All right. Xiao Shui flipped open the account book and carefully looked at it for a while before she smiled and said, This time, we obtained a total of 326,600 laws of nature. What? Madman and the others were dumbfounded. 320,000. How could there be so many? This was completely beyond their expectations. Yes, there's a total of over 30,000 ultimate laws. The remaining 290,000 Dao miniatures are all ordinary laws. Xiao Shui said. Isn't this ratio a little too big? So there are 290,000 ordinary nomological laws, and only 30,000 ultimate nomological law miniatures. Madman was stunned. That's normal. After all, regardless of whether it is the epitome of an ultimate law or the inheritance of an ultimate law, they are all rarer than ordinary laws. Moreover, those undead also need to cultivate. If they have enough ordinary law miniatures, they naturally wouldn't give us the strongest law miniatures. Xiao Shui smiled faintly. That's true. Madman nodded. Xiao Shui continued. As for the exact number of miniature versions of the various laws, there are over 4,000 miniature versions of the space-time laws. There are over 5,000 miniature versions of the time laws. There are over 3,000 miniature versions of the life laws. There are also over 3,000 miniature versions of the nothingness laws. Qin Feiyang and the others drank tea as they silently listened to Xiao Shui's report. The excitement on their faces couldn't be concealed. In the past, in the sky cloud domain, even an ordinary law miniatures were regarded as a peerless treasure, a heaven-defying creation. But now, there were thousands of ultimate laws of nature in front of them, each of which was a miniature version of the ultimate laws. It was hard to imagine how many supreme powerhouses could be created from these law miniatures in the end. Finally, there are over 5,000 miniature versions of the devouring law. Xiao Shui finally finished and looked at the next page of the account book. As for ordinary laws, don't recite the ordinary law miniatures. Qin Feiyang waved his hand. It wasn't hard to imagine that there would be at least tens of thousands of miniature versions of the ordinary laws. Azure Dragon pondered for a while and smiled. In this case, excluding the Primal Chaos Divine King and the others, we have helped over 90,000 people get rid of their undead bodies. Xiao Shui nodded. This was easy to calculate, because when refining pills and transcending tribulations were added together, there would be 2 miniature versions of the strongest laws. If it was an ordinary miniature version of the laws, there would be 36,000 miniature versions of the strongest laws. Divided by 2, there would be over 18,000 people. 290,000 miniature versions of the ordinary laws. Divided by 4, there would be over 72,000 people. That would be a little more than 90,000 people. Just over 90,000 people allowed us to harvest so many miniature versions of the laws. If we continue to stay here, how many miniature versions of the laws can we harvest in the end? You have to know that there are countless undead in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, Yin Xiang exclaimed. Although there are countless undead in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, there are limited medicinal herbs and law miniatures. Even if we continue to stay here, we probably won't be able to harvest much. Xiao Shui shook her head. That's right. Although there are many miniature versions of the laws here, it's not to the point of being inexhaustible. Before the bell rang, according to my observation, the number of undead that came to find us was already greatly reduced. Qin Feiyang nodded. That's enough for you. You should be content. Azure Dragon looked at Yin Xiang and chuckled. Yin Xiang scratched his head and looked at Qin Feiyang. Brother Qin, how do you plan to deal with these miniature versions of the laws? If you want them, just say it. Don't beat around the bush. Frenzy looked down on him. Cough cough. Yin Xiang had an awkward expression on his face after his little trick was exposed. You don't have to be polite. Everyone is on the same side. Pick as you wish. Daifuku, you two. And your brother, Xiaofu, you should know what kind of miniature versions he needs. Pick them and bring them back for him. Qin Feiyang smiled. It didn't matter. Anyway, there were so many miniature versions. Can I really do that? Daifuku looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. Of course. But you can't be greedy. It's only limited to you and Xiaofu. And it's the power of laws that you have mastered. Qin Feiyang nodded. Daifuku looked excited as if he was dreaming. When he came back to his senses, he quickly got up and cupped his hands. Thank you, Brother Qin. We will remember this kindness in our hearts. We have known each other for so long. Don't be so polite. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. Then I'll start first. Li Feng was indeed not polite at all. He directly grabbed the interspatial ring and began to search. Yin Xiang didn't know what being polite was. Azure Dragon and Blood Ancestor were more reserved. Li Zhongxing, Xiao Shui, and Old Poison also needed miniature versions of the laws. In the end, except for Qin Feiyang and Frenzy, everyone present had obtained the miniature versions of the laws they needed. In other words, now, whether it was Blood Ancestor or Li Zhongxing's group, they had all obtained miniature versions of the laws. And this time, Elder Qing didn't refuse. Anyway, there were so many. He didn't lack the miniature versions he needed. Yin Xiang looked at the miniature versions of the laws in his hand happily. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and turned to look at Elder Qing. Elder Qing, senior brother, and the others, should we also bring back the miniature versions of the laws they need? This? Elder Qing looked at Qin Feiyang. As long as it's one of us, it's no problem. Qin Feiyang smiled. He suddenly felt like a nouveau riche. Before coming to the Chaos Royal City, they had also obtained dozens of miniature versions, but they were all frugal. They weren't as generous as they were now, taking as many as they wanted. Good. Let me think, what laws do they have? Yin Xiang grinned at Qin Feiyang. He lowered his head and pondered. After a while, he began to take out the miniature versions of the laws he needed one by one. In the end, he took a total of more than 100 miniature versions of the laws. Among them, there were more than 30 miniature versions of the strongest laws. If it was in the past, Qin Feiyang would definitely be reluctant to part with more than 100 miniature versions. but now it was just a drop in the ocean. Qin Feiyang glanced at everyone and asked, "Since you don't need it, I'll keep it then?" Dafu hesitated for a moment. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "That brother Qin N?" Qin Feiyang turned to look at Daifuku. This," Daifuku stammered. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered slightly and said indifferently, "If you want it for the phone people, you'd better not ask." No. Daifuku quickly waved his hand. At least he knew his own limits. Even if Qin Feiyang threw away these miniature versions of the laws, he wouldn't give them to the phone people. Then who do you want it for? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Daifuku gritted his teeth and said, "Her Royal Highness and His Royal Highness." Them. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. "You don't have to worry about this. Princess Fire Phoenix, I definitely won't forget her. If I dare to forget, the White-Eyed Wolf won't allow it. As for Pyrotechnic Glow, he is now the White-Eyed Wolf's brother-in-law. Naturally, I won't leave him out." "Thank you." Daifuku smiled gratefully. "It's okay. I'll ask the White-Eyed Wolf to give it to them." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and put away the universe ring. "Old Qin, this is a treasure. You have to protect it well," Madman reminded him. Qin Feiyang was stunned. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, "Indeed, I can't keep it with me." After that, he got up, entered the cultivation room, and put the universe ring into the iron box that used to store the 6-word divine art. This iron box could only be opened with his blood. Coupled with the protection of the castle, it was basically the safest place. Then, he returned to the hall with the 3 undead bottleneck breaking pills. Li Feng glanced at the 3 undead spirit barrier breaking pills and asked, "Big Brother Qin, don't you think that the attitude of the 3 demon kings was a little abnormal?" "It is indeed a bit unusual." The blood ancestor nodded. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said, "Sword of the Grim Reaper, contact the White-Eyed Wolf and ask if the 3 demon kings are up to something again. The White-Eyed Wolf and the others have already contacted me. I saw that you were in seclusion to comprehend the supreme meaning of the law of life and death, so I didn't tell you." The Sword of the Grim Reaper's voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's body. What did he say? Everyone immediately pricked up their ears. The 3 demon kings contacted Long Chen's Sword of the Gods and asked them to wait at the exit and kill the White-Eyed Wolf, Tan Wu, and the others. They also told them to keep their bodies for you to see. In response, the White-Eyed Wolf also came up with a rotten idea to deal with the 3 demon kings. The Sword of the Grim Reaper explained in detail. They are really stubborn. After hearing this, the blood ancestor's eyes flashed with killing intent. There is no other way. It will be difficult to kill them, unless the Divine King of Chaos doesn't intervene. However, we are about to leave the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, and the Sky Cloud Realm may be invaded by the Divine Kingdom, so there is no need to be entangled with them. Qin Feiyang shook his head. After leaving the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, they would have nothing to do with the 3 demon kings, because they would never come to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure again. After all, they had already grasped the ultimate meaning of the strongest law, let alone the next time the Sky Bell Divine Treasure opened. At that time, they might not even be in the Sky Cloud Realm, or they might have already died in battle with the experts of the Divine Kingdom. Chapter 38:38. The madman laughed cruelly. But the ingrate's rotten idea is not bad. Let's teach them a lesson before we leave, and let them know that there is always someone better than them. Qin Feiyang nodded his head. Suddenly, he looked at Xiao Shui and asked, "All these years has no one used a law inheritance to trade?" "No." Xiao Shui shook her head. "It seems like the potential pill isn't that tempting to them." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. "There is no need to doubt the temptation of the potential pill, because there is no living being in this world that doesn't want to open the door to the potential pill. However, law inheritances are too rare, and no one is willing to use them to trade. As for having children, I think that apart from a few people, most people haven't thought about this point. After all, the environment of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure is too harsh. Even if there is a potential pill, it will be difficult for the later generations to grow up." Xiao Shui said. "That's true." Qin Feiyang nodded his head and smiled. "Fortunately, I didn't have too much hope. Even if it was him, he would definitely not be willing to trade something like a law inheritance with others. Because in terms of value, the law inheritance actually surpassed the potential pill. Although the potential pill could stimulate one's potential, it couldn't directly allow one to comprehend the ultimate meaning. But the inheritance could. As long as one fused with the inheritance, they would be able to grasp the ultimate meaning. Therefore, the inheritance was more efficient. Of course, for living beings without an inheritance, opening the door to the potential pill was undoubtedly the fastest shortcut. Because under the same conditions, living beings who opened the door to the potential pill would be able to comprehend the meaning faster than other living beings. For living beings below the ruler realm, the speed of opening the door to the potential pill would be much faster than other living beings. In short, it depended on one's own thoughts and couldn't be forced. The next day, early morning, Qin Feiyang and the others left the ancient castle one after another. The 3 demon kings were still waiting outside. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and the ancient castle rose from the ground, turning into a black light that entered between his eyebrows. To suddenly leave, I'm really a little reluctant. Frenzy sighed. Reluctant? Yin Xiang was speechless. There was really nothing that could make one reluctant to leave this damned place. Brother Feng, what makes you so reluctant? Is it a law miniature or a law inheritance? Li Feng snickered. Are you the only one who talks too much? Madman glared at him fiercely, then glanced at the 3 demon kings and bared his teeth. My 3 lords, you must be eager for us to get out of here as soon as possible, so that you won't feel uncomfortable when you see us. It's good that you know it in your heart. Why do you have to say it out loud and make everyone feel awkward? Devil King Black Flame said indifferently. Why are you embarrassed? It's the truth. But don't worry, we will definitely miss you. Madman chuckled. The corners of the 3 demon kings' mouths twitched. Who needs you to miss them? Scram as far as you can. It would be best if you could disappear from their memories. Qin Feiyang faintly smiled. He took out 3 undead spirit breakthrough pills and handed them to the 3 of them. Looking at the 3 pills, the eyes of the 3 demon lords were filled with excitement. After more than 100 years, they had finally gotten what they wanted. All of a sudden, they were thankful to Tianzhong in their hearts. If Tianzhong had not asked these people to leave in advance, they would definitely have to wait for another 900 years. Although to them, one's seclusion was more than 900 years, under such circumstances, could they calm down and go into seclusion? Definitely not. Therefore, they still had to suffer for another 900 years. Don't want it? Qin Feiyang smiled and asked. Yes, yes, yes. The 3 of them came to their senses and quickly grabbed 1 undead spirit breakthrough pill each. They were afraid that someone would snatch it from them and immediately kept it. Aren't you going to verify it? Qin Feiyang was surprised. There is a blood oath. Do you dare to lie to us? The 3 of them did not think much of it. Qin Feiyang could not help but laugh. They were quite smart this time. Whoosh! Right then, Snow White Queen and the other 5 also flew out from the few halls in the city and landed on the city wall at lightning speed. Snow White Queen looked up at the land in front of her. Wanfeng Ridge was faintly visible. She then looked at Qin Feiyang and sighed. After this farewell, I'm afraid we won't have the chance to meet again. Take care. Thank you for your concern, Senior. Seniors, take care of yourselves too. Perhaps in the future, the descendants of the Qin clan will come to the Tianzhong Divine Treasure again. At that time, I hope that seniors can take care of us. Qin Feiyang smiled. If there is really a descendant of the Qin clan, we will take good care of them. Snow White Queen smiled. After all, Qin Feiyang had helped them open the door of potential, and also helped them get rid of their undead bodies. Such kindness, anyone with a little conscience would remember it in their heart. Thank you. And, if there is a chance, I will let the descendants of the Qin clan bring you the spirit vein and crystal vein, and let the Tianzhong Divine Treasure regain its former glory. Qin Feiyang said. Spirit vein, crystal vein. Snow White Queen and the others trembled and bowed together. Thank you, Brother Qin. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and looked up at the mountains and rivers in front of him. The Wanfeng mountain range was clearly in front of them. A mountain range formed by 10,000 giant peaks was extremely shocking. Looking at the Wanfeng mountain range, Qin Feiyang and the others also became nervous. Was the Sky Cloud realm still doing well? At the same time, bloodthirsty demon Theta Wang and the others looked at the Wanfeng mountain range with sneers in their eyes, because the scene they were looking forward to was finally coming. At the same time, in the center of the mountain range, in front of the exit, the white-eyed wolf suddenly opened his eyes and looked out of the mountain range. Princess Huofeng and the others also opened their eyes one after another. Tan Wu, the infernal divine hound, and the fire Qilin had also arrived. What a strong aura! Long Chen's pupils shrank. Even he couldn't help but feel a sense of fear when he sensed the aura of the Chaos Royal City. There is the aura of Qin Feiyang and the others. It should be the Chaos Royal City. Tan Wu smiled. Then what are we waiting for? Hurry up, let's give the 3 demon kings a surprise. The white-eyed wolf had a smirk on his face. He and Princess Huofeng had also recovered their true appearances. Moreover, in addition to the Sea Lion Emperor and the others, the white-eyed wolf, Princess Huofeng, Tan Wu, the infernal divine hound, and the fire Qilin all hid their auras. Looking at the white-eyed wolf's appearance, the Sea Lion Emperor and the others couldn't help but show a trace of sympathy. Obviously, they sympathized with the 3 demon kings. I have already sensed the aura of the Sea Lion Emperor and the others. On the city wall, Madman secretly sent a message. Qin Feiyang had also sensed it. Looking up, he could vaguely see a group of people on the top of a giant peak in the center. It seems that you are looking forward to meeting your companions. The bloodthirsty demon king suddenly spoke. Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then you have to be mentally prepared. Maybe there will be an unexpected surprise. The sneer on the bloodthirsty demon king's face was no longer concealed. Is that so? Could it be a surprise prepared for us by the 3 lords? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The bloodthirsty demon king smiled coldly and said indifferently, in short, you just have to wait and see. All right. Then we will wait and see. Let's see who will be the one giving the surprise. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Snow White Queen and the others looked at Qin Feiyang's group and Theta Wang's group with a trace of doubt in their eyes. Why did they feel that the atmosphere was a bit strange? More than 10 breaths later, the Chaos Royal City finally reached the center of the mountain range and stopped in front of the giant peak. Whether it was Qin Feiyang's group on the city wall or Long Chen's group standing on the mountain peak, they could clearly see each other. At this moment, on the ground in front of Long Chen's group, there were 5 blood-stained corpses lying on the ground. They were the white-eyed wolf, Princess Huofeng, Tan Wu, Hellhound, and Fire Qilin who were still alive and kicking. Their bodies were full of wounds and blood was flowing out. Their life fluctuations could not be sensed at all. They really looked good. Looking at this scene, Madman could not help but secretly laugh. Blood Ancestor and the others were also speechless. In terms of acting, these guys were all movie stars. Qin Feiyang glanced at the 3 demon kings. The 3 of them were indeed very happy. But at the same time, Snow White Queen and the others had a look of surprise. Weren't these people Qin Feiyang's companions? How could they die here? Because when they were in the main hall, Qin Feiyang had condensed the figures of White-Eyed Wolf and the others, so they had some impression of them. And, suddenly, the 6 of them also noticed the abnormality of Theta Wang's group. Could it be that the 3 of them were behind this? Not good. This might anger Qin Feiyang and Madman. Sure enough, when they looked at Qin Feiyang and Madman, they found the 2 standing by the city wall, staring at the corpses of White-Eyed Wolf and the others. Their faces were gloomy to the extreme. Both of their eyes were already red. Bastard, who did this? Suddenly, Qin Feiyang and Madman roared and rushed to the top of the mountain. Looking at this scene, the 3 demon kings suddenly became excited. Yes, this was it. They directly rushed out of the Chaos Royal City and were killed by the heavenly tribulation. They are all movie stars. The corner of Yin Xiang's mouth twitched. According to the script they had discussed in advance, he immediately went forward and grabbed the 2 of them, shouting, "Don't be impulsive, the exit of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure has not opened yet. If you leave the Chaos Royal City, you will be killed by the heavenly tribulation." This scene caused the three demon kings to frown. Originally, they were ready to enjoy the scene of Qin Feiyang and Madman being killed by the heavenly tribulation, but they did not expect this person to interfere. I don't care. Madman roared as if he had lost his mind. The dead can't be resurrected. You can't throw away your own life. Yin Xiang hugged the two of them tightly. Wasn't it just an act? Was there a need to use so much strength? He almost couldn't hold on. What a busybody. Looking at Yin Xiang, the three demon kings' eyes flashed with killing intent. All of you calm down. Seeing this, the blood ancestor went forward and slapped each of them. Qin Feiyang and Madman immediately stopped and looked at the blood ancestor with grievance. You really hit them? The blood ancestor ignored them. Wasn't this the script you wrote? Then he turned to Long Chun and said in a low voice, Don't tell me you did it. Qin Feiyang and Madman immediately looked at Long Chun with cold eyes. It really was me. Long Chun nodded with a smile. Why? Qin Feiyang and Madman's expressions froze. Then they roared in a low voice as bone-chilling killing intent appeared in their eyes. Long Chun sighed and said, Brother Qin, Brother Emo, you can't blame me for this. It's because you offended someone you shouldn't have. Someone we shouldn't have offended? The two of them frowned. That's right. Someone offered a very high price to take the lives of White-Eyed Wolf and the others. I'm just taking their money and helping them solve their problems. Long Chun smiled faintly. Who is it? Qin Feiyang said in a low voice. Far away on the horizon, but close in front of us. Long Chun smiled faintly. Far away on the horizon, but close in front of us? Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other, and suddenly turned to stare at the three demon kings. Why are you looking at us? The three demon kings raised their eyebrows, but their eyes were full of smiles. Now you know the consequences of offending us. Chapter 38-39. The only people who have enmity with us are the three of you. If it's not you, who else could it be? I didn't expect that the dignified three demon kings would actually use such despicable means. Qin Feiyang said angrily. It's really you guys? Snow White Theta Wang and the others looked at the three demon kings and frowned. It's really not us. The three demon kings waved their hands, looked at Snow White Queen and the others and sighed. Although Qin Feiyang and Madman have been making things difficult for us all these years, as demon kings of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, would we do such a despicable act? Snow White Queen and the others looked at the three demon kings with an expression that was hard to believe. We're really innocent. They must have some personal grudges. The three demon kings still had an aggrieved look, because they knew that the divine king of primal chaos liked Qin Feiyang and the others very much. If they nodded their heads and admitted it, it might anger the divine king of primal chaos. At that time, the consequences would be unimaginable. Who is it? Madman looked at Long Chun and roared. Let me think about it first. Should I tell you? Long Chun chuckled and looked at the three demon kings with deep meaning. Long Chun, don't talk nonsense. You've already accepted our benefits. And you also promised us that you won't reveal that we instigated it. The three demon kings transmitted their voices. Yes, I did promise. However, I've changed my mind now. Long Chun secretly smiled. What do you mean? The three demon kings' eyes darkened. It's very simple. Give us 2 more inheritances of the ultimate profound meaning, and I'll promise to help you keep your mouth shut. Long Chun secretly said. What? The three of them were furious when they heard this. To actually extort them at this time. This was simply preposterous. At this time, the madman glared at Long Chun and roared. Long Chun, answer me. Long Chun glanced at the madman and transmitted his voice to the three demon kings. Hurry up and decide. If you don't give me 2 more inheritances, I won't help you take the blame. Fine, we'll give it to you. The three of them were enraged. That's more like it. The dragons chuckled and sent his voice. Then now, you can pretend to be here to interrogate me and secretly deliver the epitome of laws to me. All right. The three of them secretly replied, gnashing their teeth. Even if they were unwilling, there was nothing they could do now. Who would have thought that Long Chun was such a greedy person? Even after obtaining the inheritance of an ultimate law, he was still not satisfied. Whoosh! Immediately, Demon King Black Flame took a step out of the Chaos Royal City and rushed towards Long Chen. He grabbed onto Long Chen's clothes and roared, "Speak! Who is the one who ordered you to do this? What does this have to do with you?" Long Chen frowned. "If you don't say it, Qin Feiyang and the others will mistakenly think that we did it. Do you think it has anything to do with you? If you don't say it today, I'll kill you." Demon King Black Flame roared and quietly took out 2 inheritances and handed them to Long Chen. He transmitted his voice. "Remember what happened today, don't let me meet you again in the future." His words were filled with killing intent. "Don't worry, after today, we will never meet again." Long Chen kept the 2 inheritances and secretly smiled. "Demon King Black Flame, what are you doing? You can't kill him. If you want to kill someone, it should be us." The madman shouted. Demon King Black Flame turned to look at the madman and frowned. "I am helping you to interrogate the mastermind behind this. We don't need your help. We will interrogate them ourselves," the madman said in a deep voice. "You really don't know what's good for you." Demon King Black Flame coldly snorted and let go of Long Chen. Then he gave Long Chen a threatening look. The meaning was that since he had already given the inheritance to you, you better know what to say and what not to say. Then he retreated to the top of the city wall. Qin Feiyang glanced at Demon King Black Flame and raised his head to look at Long Chen. He secretly smiled and asked, "What kind of inheritances did he give you?" "I didn't take a closer look, but it seems to be 2 slaughter law inheritances." Long Chen transmitted his voice. "Not bad. It seems that we are still lacking." Qin Feiyang secretly smiled. "I think so too. Now, even if we ask them for 5 inheritances, they will probably obediently give it to us." Long Chen secretly smiled. Obviously, this was the white-eyed wolf's rotten idea. Before leaving, he would ruthlessly extort the 3 demon kings once more. Myriad Poison's Demon King raised his head to look at Long Chen, Sea Lion Emperor, and the others. His eyes were extremely cold as he said, "Speak, who ordered you to do this? If you don't make it clear today, don't even think about leaving the Sky Bell Divine Treasure." Hearing this, Long Chen raised his head to look at the Demon King. When he saw the cold eyes, his heart suddenly trembled. Although bloodthirsty demon Theta Wang's people hated Qin Feiyang and the others to the bone, the other 6 demon kings seemed to take care of Qin Feiyang and the others. This guy really had some tricks up his sleeve. Even the other 6 demon kings were supporting him. "All right, I'll speak." Long Chen nodded and glanced at Theta Wang's people. He smiled. "They are the ones who ordered me to do this." At the same time, Long Chen suddenly raised his hand and pointed at Theta Wang's people. The 3 were immediately dumbfounded. After receiving benefits from them, they actually betrayed them? "It's really you guys." Snow White Queen and the others immediately looked at the 3. "No, it's not like that." The 3 waved their hands and glared at Long Chen. They roared, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Long Chen was stunned. He looked at Sea Lion Emperor and the others and asked, "Am I talking nonsense?" "No. They were the ones who ordered us to do this." The masked Azura shook his head. "Bastard." The 3 demon kings were furious. They quickly looked at Snow White Queen and the others and explained, "Don't listen to their nonsense. How could we do such a thing behind the Divine King's back? They wronged us. Why did the situation develop like this? It was clearly a plan to target Qin Feiyang and the others, but now they were in a difficult situation." Snow White Queen and the others frowned. They looked at Long Chen and asked, "Do you have any evidence to prove it?" "This is the evidence." Long Chen took out the 2 inheritances that Black Flame Demon King had given him. It was indeed 2 inheritances of the Law of Slaughter. You, Black Flame Demon Theta Wang and the others saw this scene, and were about to go crazy. Long Chen looked at Snow White Queen and the others and laughed. "Black Flame Demon King came to interrogate me just now because he was looking for an opportunity to secretly give these 2 inheritances to me. He was afraid that I would betray them, so he wanted to use these 2 inheritances to shut my mouth." Hearing this, Bloodthirsty Demon King roared, "Bastard, you were the one who secretly asked for it from us." Bloodthirsty Demon King, shut up. But before Bloodthirsty Demon King finished speaking, Feng Tian Demon King and Black Flame Demon King's expressions changed. They immediately looked at Bloodthirsty Demon King and shouted, "You're crazy! You dare to say that you asked for it from them? Isn't this equivalent to confessing without being pressed?" Bloodthirsty Demon King was stunned and immediately realized this point. He immediately looked at Snow White Queen and the others, ready to explain. "You've already admitted it. What else is there to deny?" Qin Feiyang sneered at Bloodthirsty Demon King. Bloodthirsty Demon King was extremely regretful. How could he be so careless? Enough. Suddenly, the voice of the Chaos Royal City sounded. The three Demon Kings immediately trembled and looked at the Chaos Royal City with fear on their faces. "Did I not explain clearly to you? Or are you so bold that you even dare to disobey my orders?" As the voice of the Chaos Royal City fell, a monstrous divine aura appeared and instantly enveloped the three. "Lord, please spare us." The three hurriedly knelt on the ground, their faces pale. But the Chaos Royal City did not show any mercy. The physical bodies of the three were instantly shattered and blood splattered across the sky. Even more than half of their souls were destroyed. The aura of death swept over. "Spare us, Lord!" The souls of the three screamed in fear. The three sovereign divine weapons of the Black Flame Demon Castle appeared, but they did not dare to plead for mercy for the three. So strong. On the mountain peak, the masked Shura and the others could not help but tremble at this scene. The three Demon Kings who had frightened countless souls in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure were actually so weak in front of the Chaos Royal City. How terrifying was the strength of the Chaos Royal City. Even Long Chen and the Sky God sword hidden in Long Chen's body could not help but feel fear. It seemed like they had underestimated the strength of the Chaos Royal City. Are they going to kill them? Frenzy looked at this scene and muttered to himself. It was a little unexpected. Originally, he only wanted to extort the three Demon Kings, and did not think of using this opportunity to kill them. But now, it seemed like the Chaos Royal City really wanted to kill them. Isn't it better to kill them? Qin Feiyang sneered. "Lord, we really know our mistakes. We will definitely change in the future. Please give us another chance." The three Demon Kings had not consumed the undead barrier-breaking pill, and were still souls of the dead. At this moment, they were in extreme despair. The Chaos Royal City seemed to hesitate. The divine aura stopped killing the souls of the three and asked, "Snow Queen, what do you think?" The six of them looked at each other and replied respectfully, "We don't dare to speak rashly about this matter. We have to ask the Divine King to make a decision." Although the three Demon Kings were wrong again and again, they had followed the Divine King for many years, and had a certain level of friendship with them. Looking at Qin Feiyang's side, he had helped them get rid of their undead bodies and opened the door of potential for them. This was also a great favor. They were unable to express their opinions. They could only leave it to the Divine King. Boom. It was also at this moment. The hall in the center of the city opened. A slender figure walked out step by step. It was the Divine King of Chaos who had been in seclusion for many years. "Lord, please be magnanimous and give us another chance." The souls of the three Demon Kings immediately looked at the Divine King of Chaos and begged. The Divine King of Chaos did not say anything and stepped onto the city wall. "Greetings, Lord." "Greetings, Senior." Snow Queen and the others, as well as Qin Feiyang and the others, all bowed and saluted. Chaos swept a glance at the group of people, then looked up at Long Chen and the others on the mountain peak. "She is the ruler of this place, the Divine King of Chaos." Emperor Sea Lion and the others could not help but feel nervous. Although they had never seen her before, the name of the Divine King of Chaos had long been like thunder in their ears. She commanded the 10 Demon Kings and dominated the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. Who could remain calm in the face of such a giant? Even Long Chen could not do it. Chapter 3840. The Divine King of Primal Chaos looked at Long Chen and the others, then looked at the white-eyed wolf and the others who were lying on the ground pretending to be dead. Suddenly, she seemed to have noticed something and suspiciously opened the Eye of Life and Death. She looked at the white-eyed wolf and the others again. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. The Eye of Life and Death could see through everything. Although the white-eyed wolf and the others were acting very well, and even their heartbeats had stopped, It was impossible to hide from the eye of life and death. Because no matter how you pretend, the blood in your body and the aura sealed in your body will still flow. As expected, when the Divine King of Primal Chaos closed the eye of life and death, she turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said speechlessly, "What else do you want them to pretend?" Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and looked at the white-eyed wolf and the others. He smiled bitterly and said, "Stop pretending. Don't be discovered." "We've been discovered?" The white-eyed wolf opened his eyes and got up from the ground. "How did they discover us?" Princess Huofeng, Tan Wu, the infernal divine hound, and the fire Qilin also got up, their eyes full of suspicion. This, Snow White Queen and the others looked at this scene in astonishment. The souls of the bloodthirsty Demon King, Feng Tian Demon King, and the Black Flame Demon King were also in disbelief. "Not dead? Are you angry? They schemed to harm us." In the end, not only did they not succeed, but they also lost 2 inheritances and almost lost their lives. Madman looked at the 3 Demon Kings mockingly. He no longer hoped to get rid of the 3 of them. If the white-eyed wolf and the others were really killed, it might be possible. But now that the Divine King of Primal Chaos had seen through them, whether it was the Divine King of Primal Chaos or the Primal Chaos Royal City, they would definitely show mercy. Look at the 3 Demon Kings. After scheming for so many years, they thought that they could make the other party pay the price, but in the end, they were the ones being played like clowns by the other party. How could they not be angry? The anger in their hearts had reached the point of attacking their hearts. If they hadn't lost their bodies, they would have spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Suddenly, a furious roar was heard. "Qin Feiyang, you guys sure have guts. You actually dared to trick me?" It was the angry roar of the Primal Chaos Royal City. "Senior, we're not messing with you." Although the white-eyed wolf and the others didn't die, the 3 Demon Kings were indeed scheming. However, they didn't know that all of this was within our expectations. In other words, if we hadn't anticipated it and taken precautions in advance, the white-eyed wolf and the others would have been killed. Qin Feiyang hurriedly explained. "Then why didn't you say so before?" The Primal Chaos Royal City roared. "They tried to harm us time and time again. If it were Senior, would you be able to tolerate it? Thus, this Junior does not deny that I indeed wish to use this opportunity to eliminate them." Qin Feiyang said. "You're not hiding it at all." Primal Chaos Royal City snorted. "There's nothing to hide. That's how it is. Even if Senior Divine King doesn't appear, I will tell everyone the truth after they are eliminated. In any case, against enemies, especially those 3 who are self-righteous and look for trouble, I will never be merciful," Qin Feiyang said. "Everything has already been predicted by them," the 3 Demon Kings murmured. Could it be that from the beginning, they had already fallen into Qin Feiyang's trap? "That's right. When I made the blood oath, the reason why I didn't mention the Sea Lion King and the others was to set a trap for you, because I guessed that you might use this method to deal with us. Furthermore, I contacted Long Chen and asked him to cooperate with me. Long Chen didn't lie to you. I do have a deep grudge with him, but the way we get along is a little special. With Long Chen's help, it's naturally easier to lure you into the trap. You still don't know, but you've already met the white-eyed wolf and Princess Fire Phoenix. The man and woman who negotiated with you on the mountain peak were the 2 of them. Unfortunately, even if they were standing in front of you, you didn't notice them. So it's really not that we're smart, but that you're too stupid." Qin Feiyang's face was full of ridicule. "Bastard, we'll fight it out with you." After listening to the whole process, the 3 Demon Kings were ashamed and angry, and madly pounced on Qin Feiyang. "Don't you think you've lost enough face?" The Divine King of Primal Chaos roared, and a terrifying aura emerged, directly blasting away the souls of the 3 Demon Kings. "My lord, we've been following you for so many years. Even if we didn't make any contributions, we still worked hard. Could it be that we're inferior to a mere outsider? I'm not convinced. What right do you have to make us respect you with such an attitude?" Even daring to say such words, the 3 Demon Kings were obviously blinded by anger and lost their minds. Sure enough, the Divine King of Primal Chaos was furious. He turned to look at the 3 Demon Kings, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. You're not convinced? Are you crazy? Hurry up and kneel down and apologize. Lord Divine King, please give us a way out. Snow White Queen and the others looked at the 3 demon kings and shouted. Why? Just because they gave you the undead breakthrough pill, you're helping them like this? When did the dignity of the Divine King and you demon kings become so cheap? The 3 demon kings roared. You're still talking? The Myriad Poisons demon king said angrily. I'm going to say it. Ever since they entered the primal chaos royal city, I've been enduring. I can't hold it in anymore and I don't want to hold it in anymore. The undead breakthrough pill is indeed important to us, but all these years, we've allowed them to trade with the undead outside the primal chaos royal city, allowing them to obtain so many law miniatures. It's time to repay them. Lord Divine King, you have to know that once they leave, they won't return. Many years later, they won't even remember you. As for us, no matter how the Sky Bell Divine Treasure changes, we'll always be your subordinates. It's also because we've been loyal to you that you have your current status, so you can't treat us like this. The 3 demon kings roared. Sure enough, these were words that they had been enduring for a long time. It's because you've worked so hard that I have my current status? The primal chaos divine king chuckled and shook his head. It seems that you only remember your own contributions. If it weren't for me, would you be able to obtain these sovereign weapons? If it weren't for me, would you be able to obtain the inheritance of the strongest laws and become so strong? If it weren't for me, would you be qualified to stand at the top of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure and look down on the billions of undead? Come answer me now. Who is the one who made who? And who gave you all this? The primal chaos divine king stared at the 3 demon kings, his eyes emitting a dense killing intent. Hearing these words, the 3 demon kings lowered their heads and remained silent. Their previously muddled minds finally calmed down, and they couldn't help but tremble. Why did they run over to contradict the Divine King in a moment of impulse? Was the Divine King someone they could afford to offend? Others might not know of the Divine King's methods, but as subordinates of the Divine King for many years, how could they not know? Daring to offend the Divine King, that was a path to death. I told you to answer me. Didn't you hear me? The primal chaos Divine King roared. Sorry, Your Excellency. Just now, we were impulsive and said something we shouldn't have. We beg Your Excellency to be magnanimous. We won't dare to do it again. Please, on account of our many years of service to you, give us a chance to turn over a new leaf. The 3 trembled and immediately knelt on the ground and begged. They had dominated the Sky Bell Divine Treasure for many years, but they had never felt such fear and despair. You can't blame anyone else for courting death. Seeing this scene, Madman laughed with schadenfreude. Qin Feiyang, the blood ancestor, and the others also had mocking looks on their faces. The primal chaos divine king didn't care about his face, and he actually dared to provoke him in public? If this wasn't courting death, then what was? The 6 demon kings didn't say anything. If the 3 demon kings could calm down a little and not challenge the divine king like this, they might have pleaded for mercy for the 3 of them. But now, the primal chaos divine king was clearly angry. If they still pleaded for mercy for the 3 of them at this time, they would probably be implicated as well. So now, whether the 3 of them could survive or not depended on the mood of the primal chaos divine king. Sorry. Although the 3 of them were in the form of divine souls, they had all transformed into human form and knelt on the ground, kowtowing and begging for mercy. After a long time, the primal chaos divine king finally reacted. He looked up at the myriad poisons demon king and said indifferently, "Send them to the netherworld." What? He's not killing them? Qin Feiyang and the others were stunned. But when they noticed the reactions of Snow Queen and the others, they couldn't help but feel strange. Because the faces of Snow Queen and the others were filled with fear and reverence. What kind of place was the netherworld that it made the 6 demon kings so afraid? Looking at the bloodthirsty demon king and the other 2, their faces were also filled with fear as they roared. Lord God King, we won't go to the netherworld. Please spare us, we won't dare to do it again. Didn't you hear? The primal chaos divine king turned a deaf ear and looked at the myriad poisons demon king. The myriad poisons Demon King quivered, and hurriedly rushed in front of the 3 Demon Kings. He sighed and said, "Don't blame me because you asked for it." After saying that, the myriad poisons Demon King waved his hand and swept up the 3 Demon Kings. He turned around and rushed out of the Primal Chaos Imperial City, disappearing without looking back. Senior Divine King, what kind of place is the Netherworld? Qin Feiyang looked at the Primal Chaos Divine King and asked curiously. The Primal Chaos Divine King looked at Qin Feiyang and joked, "A place that can make you wish you were dead. Do you want to try it?" Qin Feiyang was startled. He hurriedly waved his hand and laughed dryly. "Then forget it. If even these Demon Kings were so afraid, how could it be a good place?" "Humph." The Primal Chaos Divine King snorted and said, "Even though they started it first, you can't play with us like this." "Senior, I'm really innocent. The only people this junior wants to toy with are the 3 of them." Qin Feiyang felt wronged. The Primal Chaos Divine King said with a cold face, "But you wanted to use us to help you get rid of them. Isn't that offending us?" Qin Feiyang's expression stiffened. The mad scientist, the blood ancestor and the white-eyed wolf on the mountain peak couldn't help but feel nervous at this moment. Even though they hadn't seen the Primal Chaos Divine King's methods, they had witnessed the strength of the Primal Chaos Imperial City with their own eyes. If the Primal Chaos Divine King really wanted to turn hostile, none of them would be able to escape. They would all be wiped out. Chapter 38-41. Seeing this scene, Snow White Queen and the others gradually felt their hearts sink. If the Divine King of Primal Chaos really wanted to attack Qin Feiyang and the others, what should they do? They all had a good impression of Qin Feiyang, and were also grateful to him. But who would dare to disobey the orders of the Divine King of Primal Chaos? The end of the bloodthirsty demon Theta Wang, and the others was a bloody lesson. Qin Feiyang and the others didn't know about the Netherworld, but they knew too well that it was a place that would make anyone despair. The Divine King of Primal Chaos kept looking at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang felt his scalp tingle. But suddenly, the Divine King of Primal Chaos shook his head and couldn't help but laugh. "Look at how nervous you are. Did I say anything to you?" Phew. It wasn't just Qin Feiyang. Everyone present couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. They were really scared out of their wits. The Divine King of Primal Chaos continued, "But you can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment." Qin Feiyang looked at the Divine King of Primal Chaos. Why was there a but? The Divine King of Primal Chaos said, "Give me the pill formula for the undead bottleneck breaking pill." Pill formula? Qin Feiyang was stunned. "Don't you want to help the undead in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure? Without the pill formula, how can I help you?" "Don't tell me you're just saying it." The Divine King of Primal Chaos rolled his eyes. Ahem. Qin Feiyang coughed dryly to hide his embarrassment. If the undead see you like this, how disappointed would they be? Because they sincerely treat you as a good person, and are grateful to you and respect you. The Divine King of Primal Chaos looked down on him. No. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. After pondering for a moment, he looked at the Divine King of Chaos and said, "I can give you the recipe, but you have to promise me that you won't give it to anyone else." The Divine King of Chaos was slightly taken aback. He was speechless. "Then you should just hand it over to the Nine-Tailed Queen. She's an alchemist." "Are you an alchemist?" Qin Feiyang looked at the Nine-Tailed Queen in surprise. "Is it strange that I'm an alchemist?" The Nine-Tailed Queen stared at Qin Feiyang with her bewitching eyes. Not at all. Qin Feiyang hurriedly avoided the Nine-Tailed Queen's eyes. She was simply a demoness, her charm was everywhere. However, from this point, it could be seen that the chaotic Divine King did not have any selfish motives when he asked for the pill formula of the undead bottleneck breaking pill. Otherwise, he would not have asked him to give it to the Nine-Tailed Queen. Then again, an existence like the Divine King of Chaos could get anything he wanted, so why would he covet a mere pill formula? It seemed like he really had to change his paranoia. Wait a moment. Qin Feiyang looked at the Divine King of Chaos and smiled. He then took out a piece of paper and ink from his universe ring, turned around and laid it on the ground, recording the pill formula in detail. Subsequently, He took the pill formula and walked to the nine-tailed queen. The nine-tailed queen took the pill formula and looked at it. Her bright eyes suddenly had a trace of playfulness. She looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Didn't you announce to the public that the undead bottleneck-breaking pill needs hundreds of medicinal herbs?" "Ha!" Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. "What a little liar, but I like it." The nine-tailed queen pouted coquettishly. Her charming eyes were like silk and her words were full of temptation. Qin Feiyang broke out in cold sweat. He really did not dare to stay with this woman. He hurriedly turned around and ran to the divine king of chaos. "Look at you as if I will eat you." The nine-tailed queen was dissatisfied. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly. He was really depressed. Was this woman a human or a demon? Why did she have such a great charm? He was quite confident in his own ability, but in front of this woman, he could not help but feel restless. If they were alone together, something would definitely happen. Therefore, it was better to stay away from this woman. Damn it. Little Qinzi, this guy, actually has good luck with women again? The white-eyed wolf muttered. "Are you jealous?" Princess Huofeng asked. "I am." The white-eyed wolf nodded instinctively, but as soon as he finished speaking, he realized that something was wrong. As expected, a hand reached over and pulled his ear hard. "My wife, please spare my life. Little Qinzi, come and help me. The tigress is angry again." The white-eyed wolf hurriedly called for help. "Tigress?" Princess Huofeng's face darkened. She tightened her grip and said angrily, "Say it again for me." I was wrong. I won't do it again. My wife, please let go. So many people are watching. Save me some face." The white-eyed wolf said with a fawning look. The divine king of chaos and the 5 demon kings could not help but look at this scene in astonishment. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He looked at the divine king of chaos and said, "They are like this. You'll get used to it." The divine king of chaos shook his head and laughed. Suddenly, he raised his arm and poked Qin Feiyang's forehead with his fingertip. Qin Feiyang was shocked. The white-eyed wolf and the others were also shocked. They thought that the divine king of chaos was going to do something to Qin Feiyang. But in the end, when the divine king of chaos's fingertip fell between Qin Feiyang's eyebrows, a divine light poured into Qin Feiyang's mind and formed a mark, which was branded in the depths of Qin Feiyang's divine soul. Qin Feiyang was surprised and carefully felt it. This was because he could sense a huge amount of information from this mark. Soon, he showed an excited look on his face. This mark was actually all the insights of the divine king of chaos on the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death. This was definitely a great opportunity for Qin Feiyang. Because of these insights, he would be able to take fewer detours in the future. In short, the primal chaos deity king had given him all of his insights without reservation. Of course, this kind of gift would not make the divine king of chaos lose his insights into the ultimate meaning. It was just that time was too tight, and he could not explain it to Qin Feiyang personally. Therefore, he used this method to brand his insights into the ultimate meaning deep in Qin Feiyang's divine soul. After Qin Feiyang went out, he could slowly comprehend it on his own. "Thank you, senior." Qin Feiyang bowed. How could he repay this kindness in the future? The divine king of chaos waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about it. Just take it as an exchange for your pill formula." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Perhaps in the eyes of the undead, the pill formula of the undead barrier-breaking pill was better than everything, but in his eyes, the pill formula was not as valuable as this insight. "What's going on? You gave me a fright," the white-eyed wolf whispered. He thought the divine king of chaos was going to turn hostile. In the end, little Qinzi seemed to have gained something. But what was it? What made little Qinzi so excited? "Okay." The divine king of chaos smiled faintly and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. "I won't see you off personally. Take care." After saying that, he took the sovereign divine weapon of bloodthirsty demon Theta Wang and entered the hall without looking back. With a rumble, the door slowly closed. "Old Qin, what happened just now?" The madman was suspicious. Qin Feiyang looked at the hall with gratitude in his eyes. After a long time, he withdrew his gaze and looked at the madman. He shook his head and said, "Nothing." Still keeping us in suspense? The madman's face darkened. Keeping us in suspense and pretending to be mysterious. Isn't that what you and the white-eyed wolf are good at? Qin Feiyang looked at him mockingly. The madman was speechless. Wait. Suddenly, the blood ancestor frowned. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang and the madman hurriedly looked at the blood ancestor. The interspatial rings of bloodthirsty Demon King and the other two seemed to have been shattered along with their bodies. Then, wouldn't the undead bottleneck-breaking elixir we gave them have also been shattered? The blood ancestor frowned. Yes. The madman nodded and asked suspiciously, Is there a problem? The blood ancestor asked, Without the undead barrier-breaking pill, will we be killed by the blood oath? So that's what you're worried about? No, the blood oath we made was to give them the undead barrier-breaking pill. We didn't say that we would help them get rid of their undead bodies. And now, I've indeed given them the undead barrier-breaking pill, so I've fulfilled my promise. It's their own fault for not protecting them. What does that have to do with us? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The blood ancestor heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't want any accidents to happen at the last minute. But then again, the three Demon Kings were really pitiful. Not only did they fail to get rid of their undead bodies, but they were also sent to the Netherland, and even lost their sovereign divine weapons. It could be said that they suffered a double loss. Yun Xiang looked at the stone door behind the white-eyed wolf and the others and asked suspiciously, Why hasn't the exit opened yet? I don't know. It's always been like this. The white-eyed wolf shook his head. The blood ancestor said, It will only open when everyone is here. It will only open when everyone is here? Everyone was slightly taken aback and quickly scanned the people around them. Apart from those who are already dead, it seems that only Qi Xiaoyan and the white-bearded old man haven't arrived yet. What are they doing? The madman frowned and looked at the surrounding mountains and rivers. Weren't they already heading for the exit? Looks like they're further away from the exit than we are. Li Feng shook his head. That can't be right. I even specifically asked for their location back then. They're closer than we are. The white-eyed wolf raised his brow. Closer than we are? Li Feng was stunned. Since they were closer than they were, why weren't they here yet? Strange. The white-eyed wolf muttered and urged. Hurry up and contact them. Ask them how long it will take them. But right at this moment, accompanied by the sound of something tearing through the air, a sovereign divine weapon carried two people into the mountain range at lightning speed. The sovereign divine weapon was the Qilin sword. The two people were Qi Xiaoyan and the white-bearded old man. But at this moment, both of them had different degrees of injuries on their bodies. The Qilin sword was also somewhat damaged. What's wrong with you two? Everyone looked at the two suspiciously. Sorry, something happened along the way, said Qi Xiaoyan with an apologetic smile. Qi Xiaoyan smiled apologetically. When he saw the primal chaos royal city and the 5 devil kings, his pupils shrunk. When he saw Qin Feiyang and the others standing on the city walls, it was obvious who they were. They were actually personally escorting them. They were truly giving them face. Everyone looked at the two suspiciously. What kind of accident could cause them to be so heavily injured? But everyone here was tactful. Since Qi Xiaoyan did not want to talk about it, they naturally did not press him. Subsequently, everyone's gaze landed on the stone gate at the peak of the mountain. Since everyone was here, it was time to open it. End of this chapter. Chapter 3842. Boom. Sure enough. As soon as Yun Xiang and Snow White arrived, the stone door slowly opened with a loud sound, revealing a dark passage. The stone door is open, the blood oath is gone. Let's go. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a group of people flew out of the Chaos Royal City and landed in front of White-Eyed Wolf and the others. Li Zhongxing and the other two looked at the Sky Bell Divine Treasure with a trace of nostalgia in their eyes. After all, they were born here, and they were going to leave now, so they must be sad and reluctant. Qin Feiyang looked at Hun Dun and the 5 Demon Kings, cupped his hands and said, Thank you seniors for your care during this period of time. Take care. Take care. Snow White Queen and the others smiled. Phew. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath, turned around, and looked at the passage inside the stone door. He waved his hand and said, From now on, Be prepared to fight at any time, let's go. As his voice fell, the group stepped into the stone door one after another, and disappeared into the passage. Boom. As the last person entered the passage, the stone door quickly closed. When Li Zhongxing and the other two entered the stone door did not reject them. Obviously, they could leave the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. After this farewell, I don't know if we will have the chance to meet again. Dark Queen sighed. I'm afraid we will never have this chance again. However, the undead of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure will never forget them, and their deeds will be passed down here. Snow White Queen smiled faintly. The other demon kings also nodded. Sky Cloud Island. After more than 100 years, there was almost no change here. The vast sea, the clear blue sky, and the sky bell hovering above Sky Cloud Island. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. However, if one observed carefully, they would find that the sea was quieter than before. Clang! Suddenly, the sky bell buzzed and a space-time crack appeared. Whoosh! The moment the space-time crack appeared, a group of people rushed out. It was Qin Feiyang and the others. Returning to Sky Cloud Island again, looking at the familiar scene in front of them, everyone felt as if a lifetime had passed. But soon, they calmed down and immediately looked at Sky Cloud Island. Nothing changed? Sky Cloud Island was still the same Sky Cloud Island as before, but the little rabbit was nowhere to be seen. What happened? Madman frowned. If the Divine Kingdom had really descended, it wouldn't have been so peaceful. Big brother! Qin Feiyang shouted while looking at Sky Cloud Island. However, after half a year, there was still no movement. Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other, and an uneasy premonition arose in their hearts. At this moment, the heaven bell behind him buzzed and gradually disappeared. Qin Feiyang and company turned to look at the sky bell. Even though it had only been over 100 years, they had left behind too many memories in the Sky Bell Divine Trove. If he had the chance, he would definitely go there again. He then looked at Li Zhongxing and the other two. His eyes were filled with amazement as he scanned the world that was full of vitality and vitality. This was a completely different world from the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure. Now that he looked at it this way, the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure was more like a backward civilization. Wang. Suddenly, a strand of divine sense emerged and rushed towards Sky Cloud Island. The owner of this divine sense was Long Chun. On Sky Cloud Island, there was no trace of the little rabbit. This little rabbit rarely leaves Sky Cloud Island. Why is there no trace of it now? The white-eyed wolf muttered. Long Chun raised his head and looked in the direction of the Yin Demon Land. He frowned slightly and retracted his divine sense. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Brother Qin, I'll return to the dragon nest first." The white-eyed wolf hurriedly said, "Don't go yet, give us the inheritance of the law of slaughter." Long Chun was slightly taken aback. Looking at the white-eyed wolf, he smiled and said, "I thought you guys had already forgotten and were preparing to take it all for yourself." Forgotten? Not bad, young man, you're naive enough. The white-eyed wolf sneered. What a joke. This was an inheritance, who could forget it? Long Chun shook his head and smiled. He took out an inheritance and handed it to the white-eyed wolf. This was what they had agreed on beforehand. If they could really extort 2 more inheritances from the hands of the 3 demon kings, then both sides would have 1 each. Qi Xiaoyan looked at the inheritance in the white-eyed wolf's hands with a trace of envy in his eyes. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Then let's return to the Qilin sacred land first." The Azure Dragon also looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "We'll also return to the Burial God land first. I'll also return to the Phoenix nest first." Princess Huofeng also looked at the white-eyed wolf and said, Inform us immediately if anything happens." Qin Feiyang and the white-eyed wolf nodded and instructed. This was too strange. Sky Cloud Island was so quiet that it made one's hair stand on end. Then, everyone opened the space-time teleportation channel and quickly left. Soon, only Qin Feiyang, Madman, the white-eyed wolf, the blood ancestor, Li Feng, Li Zhongxing, and the Sea Lion Emperor were left. Let's go back and take a look. The Sea Lion Emperor glanced at the Sky Cloud Island and said to Qin Feiyang and the other two. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. As the Sea Lion Emperor and the others left, Qin Feiyang brought the blood ancestor and the others into the Black Tortoise realm. 100 years had passed in the outside world, but almost 200 million years had passed in the Black Tortoise realm. Although the current Black Tortoise realm hadn't changed much, it was much larger than before. Qin Feiyang stood in the sky above the Devil's Land and released his perception. Soon he was pleasantly surprised to find that the current Black Tortoise realm had surpassed the ancient realm. In other words, it was bigger than the ancient realm. This is. Li Zhongxing and the other two were surprised. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "This is the world I own, the Black Tortoise realm. There really is an independent world?" As soon as he said this, not only Li Zhongxing and the other two, but the Silver Moon Divine Sword, Golden Sun Divine Sword, Cauldron of All Creation, Void Mirror, Green Cauldron, Golden Bell, and Ancient Pagoda all flew out of Qin Feiyang's body. Strands of divine sense spread out in all directions as they stared at this miraculous land in amazement. Clang! The ancient castle also appeared and landed in its original position. Qin Feiyang didn't pay attention to them. With a wave of his hand, Pei Hongyu and Pei Dason appeared in front of him. "Young master?" The siblings were stunned at first, then they were overjoyed. Qin Feiyang asked, "Have there been any changes in the Black Tortoise realm over the years?" "Everything is as usual, nothing has changed." The siblings shook their heads. "What about the central continent?" Qin Feiyang asked. "The central continent is fine. Although many juniors have been born in the Yun family over the years, some of them are unruly and would occasionally cause trouble, but they were all stopped by Yun Guanghui." Pei Dason said. "Juniors?" Madman was stunned. After all, almost 200 million years have passed in the Black Tortoise realm. Not to mention the Yun family with a large population. Even our Pei family has already produced dozens of generations. Pei Dason smiled. "Dozens of generations? In that case, you and your sister are already at the level of ancestors." Madman was stunned. "You can say that." The siblings nodded. Yes, what do you mean by that?" "Then, in the past dozens of generations of your Pei family, have any monsters been born?" Madman was curious. "This? In front of others, I can brag about it, but in front of you guys, it's better not to mention it. After all, no matter how monstrous a person is, they can't be compared to you guys." Pei Dason smiled. "That's true," Lin Feng said. Madman laughed. "You guys are finally back." At this time, Little Wimp descended from the sky. "What? Don't say that you missed us." The white-eyed wolf looked at Little Wimp. "Missed you guys? Don't flatter yourself." Little Wimp rolled his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang. "The God-slaying tablet has already awakened, waiting for you guys to come back and take it out to pass the tribulation." "What? It has already successfully evolved." The white-eyed wolf was pleasantly surprised. "And?" Little Wimp nodded and explained. "In fact, it has already successfully evolved long ago, but in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, it can't go out to pass the tribulation, so it has been delayed until now." "What about the Sunset Bow and the rest?" Qin Feiyang asked. "They are still a little lacking. In short, make the arrangements and help it pass the tribulation," Little Wimp said. "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. He didn't expect to receive such good news as soon as he returned. However, the next problem was, how should he keep the God-slaying tablet? If the God-slaying tablet successfully passed the tribulation and ran back to Princess Huafeng, then wouldn't they have wasted so much time and origin energy? No need to think so much. With my current relationship with Sister Feng, what's hers is also mine. The white-eyed wolf bared his teeth. Qin Feiyang and the madman looked at each other speechlessly. "Right. Where is the law of light inheritance that I asked you to leave for me?" Qin Feiyang looked at the white-eyed wolf and asked. "It's here." The white-eyed wolf waved his hand and a sealed iron box appeared. When the seal was unlocked and the iron box was opened, the law of light inheritance immediately appeared. The madman rolled his eyes and chuckled. "Old Qin, since you have obtained the law of light inheritance, then shouldn't the law of slaughter inheritance belong to me?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. The madman raised his eyebrows slightly and said angrily, "Didn't you already obtain the law of lightning inheritance? Also, Where is the surprise you said you would give me? Qin Feiyang and the madman smiled at each other and took out the law of time inheritance that the blood ancestor gave to the white-eyed wolf. This, the white-eyed wolf was stunned. Qin Feiyang said, "This is a gift from the ancestor. You have to thank him properly." The white-eyed wolf immediately looked at the blood ancestor and squeezed out a few tears. He hugged the blood ancestor and cried, "Thank you, ancestor. I knew you were a good person." The blood ancestor's mouth twitched. "Didn't you say you wanted to kill me before?" The white-eyed wolf's expression froze and he laughed dryly. "Back in the ancient world and the Nether King's hell, it was because I didn't know your identity." The blood ancestor shook his head and laughed. He looked at the law of time inheritance and sighed. "I didn't just give you an inheritance, but also a responsibility. Don't let me down." "Don't worry, I won't." The ingrate patted his chest and vowed solemnly. Then he grabbed the inheritance of the law of space and time, and left behind the inheritance of the law of slaughter. Without turning his head, he said, "Before I integrate the inheritance, no one is to disturb me." Then he went into the castle and began to fuse with the inheritance in seclusion. The madman stared at the inheritance of the law of slaughter, his eyes glowing with a green light. "Take it." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. "What?" The madman looked at Qin Feiyang in shock. Why was he so generous? Chapter 38-43. When have I ever been stingy? Qin Feiyang glared at the madman with dissatisfaction and snorted. "Didn't I give you the law of thunder inheritance back then?" The madman grinned and grabbed the law of slaughter inheritance. Without looking back, he ran into the castle and went into seclusion. Li Feng glanced at the ancient castle and said with a frown, "Big brother Qin, your generosity is a little too much." Compared to the madman, he was naturally more inclined to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang put away the law of light inheritance and smiled. "We're all brothers. There's no need to fight over it. Besides, I've already comprehended the ultimate meaning of the law of life and death." The ultimate meaning of the law of life and death was enough to compete with the ultimate meaning of the strongest law. As for the ultimate meaning of ordinary laws like the law of slaughter, it would definitely crush them like crushing dry weeds. However, it wasn't because he looked down on the ultimate meaning of the law of slaughter. After all, even if it wasn't as good as the law of life and death, it was still a powerful method. The reason why he gave it to the madman was because he was considering the future battle with the Divine Kingdom. The madman had already grasped the ultimate meaning of the law of thunder, and the law of space and time. Coupled with the ultimate meaning of the law of slaughter, the madman would naturally have more power to protect himself when facing the experts of the Divine Kingdom. Li Feng said, "In any case, people like you who always think of their friends are almost extinct in this world." The blood ancestor smiled. "Isn't that why you worship him so much?" Hearing this, Li Feng scratched his head and smiled. "You don't need to worship me. You can do it too. Because I always believe that only if you give your heart first, others will use their heart to repay you. And you're not weak now. The law of space and time and the law of slaughter have both reached the ultimate meaning. In the future, do more for the human race. Just treat it as helping me." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. "I will." Li Feng nodded. Looking at Li Feng's attitude, Qin Feiyang's face revealed a sincere smile. No matter what Li Feng did in the past, as long as he vowed to protect the human race in the future, he could ignore it. Wang. Suddenly, the image crystal began to ring. "That's a voice I haven't heard in a long time." Qin Feiyang took out the divine sound transmission stone and shook his head as he looked at the blood ancestor and Li Feng. In the Sky Bell divine treasure, the divine sound transmission stone's voice could never be heard. However, when he checked, he frowned slightly. "What is it?" The blood ancestor was suspicious. "It's Princess Huofeng," Qin Feiyang said. The blood ancestor was slightly taken aback. "Didn't she just return to the phoenix nest? Why did you send us a message?" Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and activated the divine sound transmission stone. Princess Huofeng's figure immediately appeared, and she seemed to be very anxious. "What is it?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Princess Huofeng said in a panic, "My phoenix nest doesn't even have a single clansman." "What? Qin Feiyang and the other two were bewildered. How was this possible? Princess Huifeng said in a deep voice, not only clansmen, but even a spirit vein and spirit vein are not seen. How could this be? Qin Feiyang's eyes darkened. There was not a single person from the Feng people. This was too strange. It was impossible for them to disappear from the world. He asked, are there any traces of battle? No. Princess Huifeng shook her head. Qin Feiyang said, don't worry. If there are no traces of battle, then there should be no danger. Go to the other forbidden areas immediately and inform Long Chun and the others. I will also go to the 4 continents to take a look. Okay. Princess Huifeng nodded and immediately disappeared. Qin Feiyang put away the divine sound transmission stone and looked at the blood ancestor and Li Feng. It seems that something really happened in the sky cloud realm. Then let's split up. Li Feng, you go to the northern continent. Feiyang, you go to the eastern continent. This ancestor will personally go to the western continent. Then we will meet in the southern continent. The blood ancestor said. And Qin Feiyang and Li Feng nodded. Young master, do you need our help? Pei Dason and his sister hurriedly asked. They were in the Black Tortoise realm, so they naturally followed Qin Feiyang to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, so they knew nothing about the current situation in the Sky Cloud realm. Moreover, the people of the Phoenix Nest had all disappeared. There was no need to think about it. Something big must have happened. No need, just help me manage the Black Tortoise realm. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and was about to leave with the blood ancestor and Li Feng, but suddenly patted his head and said, Flame magic sword, come out. The fragment of the flame magic sword appeared. After all these years, although there was no source land, the body had been repaired a little. Brat, come out for a moment. Qin Feiyang looked at the sky again. Swish. Brat descended from the sky. It's an intermediate dominator divine weapon. Take it to the source land and repair its body. Qin Feiyang pointed at the fragment of the flame magic sword and said, the flame magic sword would definitely be of great use in the future. Not to mention the mysterious divine kingdom, just in Long Chun, probably only the flame magic sword could compete with the heavenly god sword. And us. The golden sun divine sword roared excitedly. Brat looked at the flame magic sword, then looked at the golden sun divine sword, and the other dominator divine weapons. He actually obtained so many dominator divine weapons. It seemed that this kid had earned a lot from this trip to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. But soon after, Little Wimp frowned. If so many dominator divine weapons went to the source land to cultivate, how would the Black Tortoise realm grow in the future? The growth of the Black Tortoise realm also required a large amount of source energy. Moreover, there were already many heaven-defying divine weapons in the source land that were transforming. Take care of the flame magic sword first. Qin Feiyang glanced at the golden sun divine sword and the other dominator divine weapons, then looked at Brat and said, why? We followed you through life and death in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. And what did it do for you? The golden sun divine sword was dissatisfied. Why? Of course it's because this sovereign is stronger than you. The flame magic sword smiled proudly. At the same time it was extremely shocked. This kid actually had an independent world. Qin Feiyang rubbed his forehead and comforted. Don't be anxious. When it's time for all of you to enter the land of origin, this little brat will let all of you in. Also, all of you have to have a proper attitude because entering the land of origin isn't up to me, it's up to this little brat. Brat? The golden sun divine sword and the other dominator divine weapons looked at Brat who was standing in the sky. I'll leave it to you. Qin Feiyang directly threw this mess aside and said to Brat. Then he brought the blood ancestor and Li Feng and descended on the sky above Sky Cloud Island. Because if they were to tangle with these dominator divine weapons, there would definitely be no end to it. The blood ancestor glanced around and looked at a certain place in the mountains of Sky Cloud Island and said, you guys wait here, this ancestor will go to the little rabbit's cave to take a look. Qin Feiyang and Li Feng nodded. The blood ancestor immediately streaked across the sky and disappeared into Sky Cloud Island below. Qin Feiyang glanced at the surrounding sea area and vaguely felt that something was wrong. What are you looking at? Li Feng was suspicious. Qin Feiyang was silent. But suddenly, his eyes trembled. Yes, it was too quiet. Except for the sound of the waves and the wind, there was no other sound. Wasn't this strange? One had to know that this was the Sky Cloud Sea and there were countless sea beasts. Usually, the roar of sea beasts could be heard at any time in this area, but now there was no movement at all. At this moment, he released his divine sense and flooded the surrounding sea area. Soon, his eyes sank slightly. What's wrong? Li Feng was surprised. How could this be? Not even a single sea beast. Qin Feiyang murmured, his face was full of disbelief. What? Hearing this, Li Feng immediately released his divine sense to search the surrounding sea beasts. Within the range of his divine sense, he really didn't find a single sea beast. The phoenix nest was empty. The sea beasts of the Sky Cloud Sea were also gone. Why was this? Where did they all go? Whoosh! At this time, the blood ancestor flew up with a gloomy face. Is there any? Qin Feiyang hurriedly asked. Because the mermaid princess and the others were now in the little rabbit's cave residence. No. Even the cave residence is gone, leaving only an empty cave. The blood ancestor said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang's face changed. Li Feng said. We also found a problem. The sea beasts of the Sky Cloud Sea are also gone. No way. The blood ancestor was shocked and hurriedly released his divine sense. When he saw the empty sea area with his own eyes, his expression became dull on the spot. Whoosh! At this time, several figures landed in the void in front of them. Qin Feiyang and the others looked over. It turned out to be the Sea Lion Emperor and a group of Beast Emperors. At this moment, the Beast Emperors' faces were full of anxiety. The blood ancestor frowned and said, You didn't find any sea beasts? You also found it? The Sea Lion Emperor said. Yes. Qin Feiyang and the others nodded. One of the Beast Emperors said in a deep voice, We have searched the entire Sky Cloud Sea. Not to mention sea beasts, not even a shadow, not even a spirit vein and crystal vein. It's not just the Sky Cloud Sea. The phoenix nest that Princess Huofeng gave us just now is also empty. The blood ancestor said. The phoenix nest is also empty? The Sea Lion Emperor and the others looked at each other with a face full of surprise. What the hell is going on? Don't panic. Let's go to the few continents first. After Qin Feiyang said, he asked Li Feng to open a few space-time passages. We will go too. The Sea Lion Emperor said. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and stepped into the space-time passage to the eastern continent. The Sea Lion Emperor and another Beast Emperor followed Qin Feiyang. A majestic mountain was located somewhere in the eastern continent. The mountains were stacked on top of each other, and majestic halls could be seen everywhere on the peaks. This was the eastern continent's sacred ground, the demonic palace. The demonic palace, which originally had countless disciples and was bustling with noise, was dead silent at this moment. When Qin Feiyang and the others arrived above the demonic palace, their hearts sank when they saw this scene, because they couldn't sense a single person's aura in the demonic palace. Another Beast Emperor released his divine sense and covered the entire demonic palace. He said in a deep voice, It's the same as our situation. Not only are there no people, but even the spirit vein, crystal vein, and medicinal herbs are gone. This Beast Emperor was a muscular man. He was 8 feet tall and looked quite fierce. At this moment, his eyes were filled with hostility. Old bull, don't worry. At least for now, we haven't seen any traces of battle. The Sea Lion Emperor comforted. Qin Feiyang looked at the two before lowering his head to look at the demonic palace. Although he looked calm on the surface, he was actually panicking in his heart. Chapter 38-44. The Phoenix Nest, the Heavenly Cloud Sea, and the Devil Palace were all empty. What did this mean? It meant that the same thing might be happening in other places. One had to know. Just the sea beasts in the Heavenly Cloud Sea couldn't be estimated with numbers, let alone the living beings of the 4 continents. So many living beings had disappeared without leaving a trace. It was as if they had suddenly disappeared into thin air. Such a strange thing made one's scalp go numb. Seniors, please go to the 4 cities again. Qin Feiyang looked at the Sea Lion King and said, Okay. The two nodded. They could clearly feel that Qin Feiyang was currently brewing a monstrous rage in his heart. Following the departure of Emperor Sea Lion and Emperor Sea Lion, Qin Feiyang's voice transmission God Stone resounded once more. When he took out the stone, several figures appeared. They were Tan Wu, Fire Qilin, Hell God Hound Qi Xiaoyan, and the white-bearded old man. Brother Qin, something bad has happened. When Tan Wu saw Qin Feiyang, he immediately spoke. Qin Feiyang's heart sank, and he asked, "Have all the people of the Qilin Holy Land disappeared?" "How do you know?" This time, it was Tan Wu and the others who were surprised. "The people of the Phoenix Nest, the sea beasts of the heavenly cloud sea, and the people of the Devil Palace, they have all disappeared. I am the Devil Palace now." Qin Feiyang turned the voice transmission stone and faced the Devil Palace below. Looking at the deserted and empty Devil Palace, the faces of the five sank. What was going on? Where did everyone go? So many living beings couldn't have disappeared for no reason. Qin Feiyang said, "I'm afraid only the Sky Bell knows about this. Unfortunately, it has already left." "Then what should we do now?" Fire Qilin asked. Qin Feiyang said, "You guys go directly to the southern continent. We will meet there later." "Okay." Tan Wu and the others nodded. And then the figures quickly disappeared. It seemed that the Dragon Nest, the land of buried gods, the western continent, the northern continent, and the southern continent should also be empty. However, Qin Feiyang didn't believe that all the living beings on the continent would disappear without leaving behind any clues. He released his divine sense and enveloped the demonic palace, carefully searching every corner. He didn't know about the others, but he knew Elder He very well. If there was really an emergency, Elder He would definitely leave some clues for him. However, finally, a hint of disappointment appeared on his face. After searching the entire demonic palace, he didn't find anything like a letter. Whoosh! The Sea Lion King and the Sea Lion King returned with a heavy expression. They shook their heads and said, "No one, not even a single beast." "Damn it! What the hell is going on?" Qin Feiyang clenched his fists and suppressed the anger in his heart. Finally, he could not hold it in any longer and exploded. Sea Lion King and Sea Lion King looked at each other and clenched their fists tightly. Southern Continent. The Blood Ancestor, Li Feng, and the other beast emperors entered the southern continent one after another. Finally, everyone gathered in the sky above the temple. Everyone's expression was incomparably heavy. When Qin Feiyang brought the Sea Lion King and the Sea Lion King to the sky above the temple, the Blood Ancestor and the others immediately went up to greet them. Looking at each other's expressions, needless to say, they already knew that all the living beings on the 4 continents had disappeared. Tan Wu and the others also came one after another. In the end, Long Chen also contacted Qin Feiyang and the others and came to the sky above the temple. Sure enough, it was as expected. The people of the Dragon's Nest also seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. The dragons and their daughter also disappeared with the dragons. After being with Long Chen for so long, this was the first time Qin Feiyang saw Long Chen in such a state. His entire person was in a state of complete confusion. It could be seen. He was so worried about Long Zun and his daughter. But thinking about it, Long Chen's family in this world, other than the Ice Dragon, were only Long Zun and his daughter. Now that the mother and daughter were both missing, and there were no clues at all, how could he not be anxious? Tan Wu suddenly looked at Long Chen and asked, "Can you find your father and ask him to help find them?" "I can't contact him at all." Long Chen shook his head. Everyone looked at each other, and there was a trace of sympathy on their faces. As a son, he was actually unable to contact his biological father. This was a kind of sorrow even if he said it out loud. The Blood Ancestor looked at everyone's panicked and uneasy appearance and said in a deep voice, "I know that you are all very anxious now, and this ancestor is actually the same, but at this time we can't panic, we must stay calm." Qin Feiyang and Long Chen looked at the Blood Ancestor. "Especially the two of you. You must keep a calm mind at all times and give advice to everyone." The Blood Ancestor looked at Qin Feiyang and said. The two took a deep breath, trying to calm the anxiety in their hearts, and lowered their heads to ponder. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang looked down at the temple and frowned. "Even the spirit vein, crystal vein, and medicinal herbs are not left, This seems to be a bit like a transfer? A transfer? Everyone was stunned. That's right. They should have transferred ahead of time. Should be. If they really encountered danger, they couldn't have cleaned it up so cleanly. Long Chun nodded and looked up at the sky, his eyes flickering. Was it because of the Divine Kingdom? Because only the arrival of the Divine Kingdom would bring such a big crisis to the Sky Cloud realm. The sovereign divine weapon of the Sky Cloud realm was taken to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure by us. So facing the powerhouses of the Divine Kingdom, the Feather Emperor, Dragon King, Feng Ho the Qilin Master, and the Little Rabbit have no confidence. Therefore, in the face of the arrival of the Divine Kingdom, they decisively moved. But where can they hide in the forbidden areas of the Sky Cloud realm, the 4 continents, and the Sky Cloud Ocean? It seems that there is none. Could it be? Suddenly, Qin Feiyang turned his head and looked in the direction of the Sky Cloud Ocean. Yes. Nether King Hao. Long Chun said word by word. Nether King Hao. The eyes of Emperor Sea Lion and the others suddenly trembled. Yes. If they want to avoid the powerhouses of the Divine Kingdom, they can only retreat to the Nether King Hao. Long Chun nodded. Impossible. If they really retreat to the Nether King Hao, then the powerhouses of the Divine Kingdom can also kill their way to the Nether King Hao. In this way, not only will they not be able to escape, but even the creatures of the Nether King Hell will be affected. Dragon King, Feng Ho, and the Qilin Master, I dare not say, but based on my understanding of the Feather Emperor, he will definitely not take this risk. The Blood Ancestor shook his head. Long Chun said in a deep voice, but now, the only place they can go is the Nether King Hao. If they really go to the Nether King Hao, then I'm afraid that the first, second, and even the ancient world and Great Qin will be in danger. Tan Wu looked at Qin Feiyang and said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. That's right. Great Qin and the entrance to the ancient world were both in the divine ruin. Moreover, he still remembered that the Blood Ancestor had said that the Blood Demon King had died in battle because he went to intercept the powerhouses of the Divine Kingdom going to the Nether King Hao. If the powerhouses of the Divine Kingdom really came, then they must be in the Nether King Hell now. If that was really the case, then as Tan Wu said, the first, second, ancient world, and even Great Qin were really in danger. Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang immediately looked at Li Feng and shouted, "Hurry up and return to Sky Cloud Island." Needless to say, Great Qin was his home, his roots. He would not allow anyone to harm Great Qin, not even a blade of grass or a tree. The ancient world could be considered his second home. He had countless old friends. For example, Yi Zhong, Sheng Guanqiu, the Beast Emperor, Wu Yi, and so on. If something really happened, he would suffer for the rest of his life. Buzz. However, just as Li Feng opened the space-time tunnel, Qin Feiyang's divine voice transmission stone sounded again. Qin Feiyang was about to step into the space-time tunnel when he heard the sound of the divine voice transmission stone. He frowned slightly and immediately took it out. 2 figures appeared. It was Princess Huafeng and Daifuku again. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang asked. Princess Huafeng said, "Hurry up and come to the entrance of the land of the buried gods." Why are we going to the entrance of the land of the buried gods? Qin Feiyang was bewildered. Long Chun and the others also looked at Princess Huafeng and Daifuku in confusion. I just arrived here, but as soon as I arrived, I sensed an intense battle. I think Yun Xiang and the others are fighting with someone. Princess Huafeng said in a deep voice. Fighting? Qin Feiyang and the others' eyes trembled. Hurry up. Princess Huafeng urged and turned off the divine voice transmission stone. She looked up at the core area of the land of the buried gods, her eyes filled with worry. Above the temple, Li Feng looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Qin Dage, what now? Thousands of thoughts flashed through Qin Feiyang's mind in an instant. He looked at Long Chun and said, I'll go to the land of the buried gods to take a look. You take everyone to Hao. I'll leave everything to you. Don't worry. Long Chun nodded. This was the first time they had worked together in the truest sense. As for the cooperation in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, it was purely for fun. However, although it was their first real cooperation, there was an unconditional trust between them. They were very steady and reliable. Li Feng said, Teen Dage, I'll go with you. I control the laws of space and time, so it's more convenient. This ancestor will also go to the land of the buried gods. The blood ancestor's eyes were overflowing with blood. If Yin Xiang and the others were really fighting with someone, then this person was most likely an expert from the Divine Kingdom. He had never had a good impression of the Divine Kingdom. All right. Qin Feiyang nodded. Li Feng immediately opened another space-time tunnel. No matter what you encounter, don't be impulsive, Emperor Sea Lion warned. I know. Qin Feiyang nodded and turned around to lead Li Feng and the blood ancestor into the space-time tunnel. Let's go too. This time, I sincerely hope that everyone can put aside their previous grudges and face this catastrophe together. After Long Chen finished speaking, he also stepped into the space-time tunnel. Emperor Sea Lion and the others looked at each other and followed. The entrance to the land of the buried gods. Although less than 5 breaths had passed, Princess Huofeng and Daifuku were already impatient. Swish. Finally, Qin Feiyang and the other 2 arrived. Where are the others? The 2 immediately ran in front of the 3. They went to hell. Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at the land of the buried gods. Rumble. Sure enough, he could faintly feel a terrifying aura, but because it was too far away, he couldn't clearly determine who was fighting. To hell? Princess Huofeng and the other 2 were slightly stunned and said in surprise, why did they go to hell? After spending so much time with Qin Feiyang and the others, the 2 had long known about the existence of hell. To confirm some of our guesses. Don't worry about them. Let's quickly enter the core area. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Now, is the Princess of the Divine Kingdom still here? Chapter 38-45. Back then, it was the Dragon King Feng Ho, the Kirin Lord, and all the Dominator divine weapons of the 3 races that joined forces to seal the Princess of the Divine Kingdom. One had to know. The dragons, Feng people, and the Kirin clan had a total of 30 Dominator divine weapons. In other words, to break this seal, one had to be stronger than the Dragon King, and the other 30 Dominator divine weapons. And obviously, the Feather Emperor didn't have this ability. As for the Dragon King, Feng Ho, and the Kirin Lord, although they had participated in sealing the Princess of the Divine Kingdom, without the 30 Dominator divine weapons, they didn't have the ability to break the seal. So if there was no accident, the Princess of the Divine Kingdom might still be sealed in the core area. The reason why he said this was because if the Divine Kingdom really came and saw that the Princess of the Divine Kingdom was sealed here, they should help her break the seal. In fact, this time, Qin Feiyang planned to break the seal when he returned from the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, and let the Princess of the Divine Kingdom regain her freedom. After all, the Princess of the Divine Kingdom was his ancestor. But he didn't expect that so many things would happen this time. But don't think that the Princess of the Divine Kingdom would be safe when she returned to the Divine Kingdom. One had to know. The marriage of the Princess of the Divine Kingdom with the human emperor was tantamount to betraying the Divine Kingdom. He believed that no one would tolerate a traitor. So, Qin Feiyang still hoped that the Princess of the Divine Kingdom was still sealed in the core area, because only if he went to rescue her, the Princess of the Divine Kingdom would be truly out of danger. Seeing Qin Feiyang fly into the land of buried gods, the blood ancestor was stunned. He hurriedly stepped forward to stop him and asked, "You're just going to fly in like this?" The land of buried gods was so big. If he wanted to rush to the core area like this, wouldn't he have to wait for a long time? Otherwise, Qin Feiyang was suspicious. The land of buried gods had rules and restrictions, so he couldn't teleport. He could only fly in. Looks like you're a little too anxious. Didn't I tell you before that after mastering the ultimate profundity of an ultimate law, we can ignore the rules here? The blood ancestor shook his head. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. He patted his head and looked at Li Feng. Li Feng understood and opened a teleportation channel. The 5 of them immediately rushed into the passage. The central region. Somewhere, 2 figures were engaged in a bloody battle. One of them was Yin Xiang. Yin Xiang's current strength was also quite impressive. Not only did he master the ultimate meaning of the law of death, but he also had his own sovereign divine weapon, the Yin Yang mirror. His opponent was a red-haired old man. Although this person looked old, his aura was extremely vigorous. Around him, a terrifying destruction law swept out in all directions. Not far away, the masked azure dragon, the yellow-robed old man, the black-robed man, and the others were all covered in wounds and blood. Their faces were filled with weakness. Obviously, they were seriously injured. The entire central region had been destroyed. Fortunately, there wasn't a single living being in the land of the buried gods. Otherwise, it would definitely be a scene of misery and suffering. Whoosh! At the edge of the core region, as a space-time passage appeared, 5 figures walked out one after another. It was Qin Feiyang and the others. As soon as Qin Feiyang came out, he looked around. When he saw the core region, he was shocked. The entire core region was shrouded in a destructive aura. All kinds of law power surged, forming terrifying thunderbolts and storms that swept out in all directions. This is the core region. The blood ancestor side. The core region, Qin Feiyang murmured. Although he had been to the land of the buried gods, this was the first time he saw the core region with his own eyes. He never expected such a scene. The blood ancestor scanned the core region and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, "The law power is still there, which means the seal still exists." The law power is the seal? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. The blood ancestor nodded. Qin Feiyang clenched his hands. Even at this moment, in front of the thunderbolts and storms formed by the law power, he couldn't help but feel a fatal crisis. And the princess of the divine kingdom was sealed here. How much suffering and pain would she have to suffer? Dragon King Feng Ho, the Qilin master. Sooner or later, he would settle the score with you. At the same time, a sense of intimacy that blood was thicker than water arose spontaneously. This was the summoning of the bloodline power. "Child, you're here." Suddenly, a gentle and kind voice sounded in the core region. "Ancestor." Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. "Sister-in-law." The blood ancestor's body trembled, and he couldn't help but shout, "Boss, you're back too." The voice sounded again with a trace of joy. "Boss." Li Feng looked at the blood ancestor in shock. "I'm older than the human emperor and the feather emperor, so they all call me boss or big brother." The blood ancestor explained, his voice a little choked. Looking at the core region, he said, "Sister-in-law, don't worry, we'll help you unlock the seal later. You don't know, but this descendant of yours and second brother is really outstanding. He now has the ability to help you unlock the seal." The so-called second brother was naturally the human emperor. "I know he's outstanding, because I've always been paying attention to him." The princess of the divine kingdom smiled with relief. "Paying attention to me?" Qin Feiyang whispered. "Yes. A long time ago, the little rabbit had already told me that our descendant had come to the Sky Cloud realm. So at that time, I asked Xiang to go to the eastern continent to find you, understand you, and take care of you." The princess of the divine kingdom explained. "So that's the case." Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. "To be honest, when I learned from the little rabbit that your bloodline power had awakened, I was very happy, but at the same time, I was very worried." The princess of the divine kingdom sighed. Although she had been talking, he still couldn't see her. "Worried?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "Yes. Although the purple gold dragon blood will bring you extraordinary talent, it will also bring you endless trouble at the same time. The Lord of the Divine Kingdom, who is my father, doesn't allow humans to have the purple gold dragon blood, because in his view, it's a humiliation to the purple gold divine dragon clan. Therefore, I sincerely hope that you didn't awaken the purple gold dragon blood and didn't come to the Sky Cloud realm, so that you won't be implicated by us." The princess of the divine kingdom sighed. "Humans having the purple gold dragon blood is a humiliation to the purple gold divine dragon clan? What kind of preposterous words are these?" Qin Feiyang coldly snorted. "But that's the truth." The princess of the divine kingdom sighed. "Wait. You just said the purple gold divine dragon clan. Could it be that there are many of them in the divine kingdom?" Li Feng was surprised. "Yes. The purple gold divine dragon is the ruler of the divine kingdom. And the strength of the divine kingdom is far beyond your imagination. The experts that came from the divine kingdom last time were just the tip of the iceberg." The princess of the divine kingdom said. Qin Feiyang and the others' hearts sank when they heard this. Let's not talk about this for now. The seal doesn't matter. Go and save Xiang and the others first. They are in great danger now. The princess of the divine kingdom's tone was full of worry. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded and turned to look at the central region, where they could clearly sense the fluctuations of the battle. But just as Qin Feiyang was about to rush to the battlefield, Daifuku's exclamation sounded. Look, what is that? Qin Feiyang and the others hurriedly looked at Daifuku and saw that Daifuku was looking at the sky above the central region, his eyes full of shock. Qin Feiyang and the others also hurriedly looked up and saw that at the top of the sky, there was a gate that was 1,000 feet tall. This gate seemed to be made of purple gold divine iron and radiated a dazzling purple gold divine light. There was also a vivid purple gold divine dragon engraved on the door, emitting a terrifying dragon's aura. And although the gate was open, it was pitch black inside, making it impossible to see anything. That's the gate of the divine kingdom. The blood ancestors' pupils constricted. The gate of the divine kingdom. Qin Feiyang and the others trembled. Was the divine kingdom behind this gate? Strange. Last time, the gate of the divine kingdom appeared above Skycloud Island. Why is it above the central region of the land of buried gods this time? The blood ancestor frowned. It's because of me. The voice of the princess of the divine kingdom sounded again. You? Qin Feiyang looked at the central region. Yes. The gate of the divine kingdom can sense the power of my bloodline. After using the guidance of the power of my bloodline, it directly came here. The princess of the divine kingdom said. Then when did the gate of the divine kingdom appear? Qin Feiyang asked. 7 years ago. The princess of the divine kingdom said. As expected, Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. It was at this time that the Sky Bell told them to leave the Sky Bell divine treasury. It seemed like it was as they guessed. It was the Feather Emperor and the others who begged the Sky Bell to let them leave the Sky Bell divine treasury in advance. I know you have a lot of questions in your hearts. But now I don't have time to explain. Quickly go and help Xiang and the others. The princess of the divine kingdom urged. Okay. We'll go right away. Qin Feiyang nodded. He did have a lot of questions in his heart. For example, where were the Feather Emperor and the others? How many people from the divine kingdom came? Did the Lord of the divine kingdom come personally? However, seeing that the princess of the divine kingdom was so anxious, Yin Xiang and the others must be facing an extraordinary opponent. Therefore, no matter how many questions they had to solve the problem in front of them first. Whoosh! The 5 of them turned and rushed to the battlefield at lightning speed. The battlefield was not far away. In less than a minute, they saw Azure Dragon and the others. Feiyang? Why are you here? Seeing that Qin Feiyang and the others had rushed over, Azure Dragon and the others were slightly stunned. Why didn't you inform us that such a big thing has happened? Qin Feiyang frowned. Isn't there still Xiang? He should be able to solve it. Besides, you must be investigating outside. Therefore, we didn't want to cause you trouble. Azure Dragon smiled apologetically. We have already encountered the experts of the Divine Kingdom. How can you say that we are causing trouble? This time Qin Feiyang was really a little angry. Before leaving, he had said that he would inform everyone immediately if anything happened. However, these people had no news at all. If not for Princess Huofeng and Daifuku who came to the land of buried gods and discovered it in time and informed them, they would have already entered the Hell of the Nether King. When they entered the Hell of the Nether King, even if Yun Xiang died here, no one would know. Chapter 3846. And he even said that Yun Xiang could deal with it? Wasn't he being too confident? Although Yun Xiang's current strength was indeed very strong, it had to be known that if even the Divine Kingdom's princess was so worried, then how could the Divine Kingdom's powerhouse fighting Yun Xiang be an ordinary person? Looking at Qin Feiyang's angry face, the Azure Dragon's apologetic expression became even more intense. He couldn't blame Qin Feiyang for not respecting them. Qin Feiyang was so angry because he was worried about their safety. Then, Qin Feiyang looked up at the battlefield in the sky. The battle was extremely intense. Both Yunxiang and the red-haired old man had activated their ultimate profound meanings, and were madly clashing. Looking at it this way, the two of them were really evenly matched. What's going on? If the red-haired old man is only this strong, why would the princess of the divine kingdom be so worried? Qin Feiyong frowned, turned to the blood ancestor, and asked, "Ancestor, do you know him?" "No, I don't. When the divine kingdom descended last time, he didn't appear." The blood ancestor shook his head. "Didn't appear?" Qin Feiyong murmured, turned to the azure dragon and asked, "Senior, when you returned to the land of buried gods, where did you meet this person?" "At the edge of the core area. At that time, he was talking with the princess of the divine kingdom." The azure dragon said. "Talking about what?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. "The situation at that time was like this. When we returned to the land of buried gods, we found that the entire land of buried gods was devoid of life. The azure dragon was immersed in his memories while paying attention to the battlefield. What's going on? Our land of buried gods is too quiet." In the central area, Yin Xiang and the Master Jura looked down at the mountains and rivers below, their faces full of astonishment. "It is indeed a little different from before." The azure dragon and the others nodded, their faces full of suspicion. "Lord Feather Emperor!" Yin Xiang shouted. However, there was no response for a long time. "Feather Emperor isn't here? Could it be that the divine kingdom has really descended and the Feather Emperor has already met with misfortune?" Azure Dragon's brows furrowed tightly. Suddenly he quivered and shouted, "Hurry up and look around." "All right." The group of people scattered in all directions. But he didn't find anything. In the entire land of the buried gods, there wasn't even a single flying insect. Yin Xiang frowned. He suddenly looked at the Master Jura and said in a deep voice, "Quickly go to the core area and see if Master is still there." "Master." The Master Jura's eyes trembled. The two of them immediately rushed towards the core area. Azure Dragon and the others looked at each other and hurriedly caught up. They were extremely nervous. Yin Xiang gazed at the core area and murmured, "Master, please be all right." Very soon, they saw the core area. Seeing that the lightning and storm in the core area were still there, the two of them breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the lightning and storm were still there, the seal would still be there. If the seal was still there, Master would definitely be fine. However, in the next moment, they all felt a terrifying aura and raised their heads to look at the sky above the core area. They didn't know if they didn't look, but when they looked, they were shocked. In the sky above the core area, there was a purple gold gate floating. "This is..." Azure Dragon and the group of reclusive old antiques' eyes suddenly trembled. "What's wrong?" Yin Xiang and the Master Jura were surprised. "This is the gate of the divine kingdom," the middle-aged man in black exclaimed. "The gate of the divine kingdom?" Yin Xiang and the Master Jura were stunned. In other words, it's the passage to the divine kingdom. The appearance of the gate of the divine kingdom means that the divine kingdom has descended. Azure Dragon said word by word. There was a trace of fear on his face. "Look. There's a person over there." Suddenly, the yellow-robed old man pointed at the edge of the core area. "Is it Lord Feather Emperor?" Everyone retracted their gazes and looked at the place where the yellow-robed old man pointed. They saw a mountain peak of about 100 feet. On the peak of the mountain stood a red-haired old man. However, they could only see the back of the red-haired old man, and could not see his face. However, they could already tell that this person was not Lord Feather. "Be careful. This person's aura is very strong. He is not weaker than Lord Feather Emperor. He might be an expert from the divine kingdom," Azure Dragon said in a low voice. The group immediately restrained their aura and approached the mountain peak. At the same time, the red-haired old man standing on the peak of the mountain seemed to have sensed something. He glanced at the mountains behind him and then looked at the core area. There was a trace of contempt in his eyes. He said indifferently, "Are you protecting these ants? In front of you they are ants. But in front of me they are my companions, my family." The voice of the princess of the divine kingdom sounded. "Companions, family. Shouldn't your companions, your family, be citizens of the divine kingdom? As the princess of the divine kingdom, you did not protect them. Instead, you came to protect ants from an inferior civilization. Are you worthy of your parents who raised you? Are you worthy of all the citizens of the divine kingdom who look up to you? The red-haired old man chuckled. His tone was calm, but his eyebrows were full of hostility. The princess of the divine kingdom said angrily, "There is no superior civilization or inferior civilization in this world. Everyone is equal." Equal. What a naive idea. Let me ask you one last time. Do you want to return to the divine kingdom with me? Your father said that as long as you repent and turn over a new leaf, we will help you break the seal and let you return to the divine kingdom. At that time, you will still be the high and mighty princess of the divine kingdom. The red-haired old man said indifferently, "I have never made a mistake. What is there to repent about? You should persuade Lord Father not to come to the sky cloud realm to kill the innocent." The princess of the divine kingdom did not even hesitate, and gave the red-haired old man this answer. Stubborn. The red-haired old man's killing intent rose. The princess of the divine kingdom saw that the situation was not good and shouted, "Azure Dragon Xiang, don't come over. Run." Yin Xiang and the others were shocked. Run? Facing the divine kingdom, who can escape? The red-haired old man smiled disdainfully, and turned to look at Azure Dragon and the others. A terrifying divine power roared out and rolled toward the group like a tide. How were we discovered? Yin Xiang and the others were surprised. They had already restrained their aura, but they were still discovered by the other party? Moreover, listening to Master's tone, this was a strong enemy. Before they could react, the terrifying divine might surged over. Everyone let out a muffled groan as they were sent flying. In just an instant, blood flowed out of their bodies. You should be the people who went to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure to train, right? I didn't expect you to come back early. You are just ants. In the end, you are just ants. No matter how much fortune and opportunity you are given, you won't be able to make any waves. The red-haired old man's face was full of contempt. You know about the Sky Bell Divine Treasure? Yin Xiang stabilized his body and was surprised. Isn't the Sky Bell floating above Sky Cloud Island? Is it strange that I know about it? The red-haired old man sneered, and turned to look at the core area. Your Highness, I am about to kill them. Are you sure you don't want to think about it? If you swear now to cut all ties with them, I may let them live for a few more days. That kind of overbearing attitude made Yin Xiang and the others fly into a rage. The princess of the divine kingdom ignored him and shouted, Xiang, you are not his opponent. Run. Sigh, you really want to force me to make a move? The red-haired old man sighed and looked back at Yin Xiang and the others. The law of destruction rolled out. What are you so arrogant for? Yin Xiang couldn't bear it anymore. With a roar, the law of death roared out and the ultimate profound, the 18 layers of hell, instantly appeared. The red-haired old man was stunned. At such a young age, he had mastered the ultimate profound of the law of death? Interesting. Boom. As he waved his hand, the ultimate profound of the law of destruction, the heavenly eye of destruction, also appeared. The two ultimate profound collided crazily. A destructive aura instantly spread out with the two of them as the center. This scene surprised the princess of the divine kingdom. It seemed that this disciple had obtained a lot of opportunities in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. However, she was still worried. At the same time, Azure Dragon and the others also quickly retreated. Elder Azure, is this the inheritance that the Divine King of Chaos gave to junior brother? The Master Jura looked at Azure Dragon and asked. Yes. Azure Dragon nodded. I really envy junior brother. Following Qin Feiyang will lead a good life. As for me, although I have also obtained a law of sword, it is not worth mentioning compared to the law of death. The Master Jura shook his head. Azure Dragon looked at Yin Xiang worriedly and said, Don't be envious. I have also prepared an ultimate law inheritance for you. Really? The Master Jura was surprised. Azure Dragon took out the inheritance of the law of devour and handed it to the Master Jura. This, the Master Jura looked dazed. This is a gift from the Divine King of Chaos to me. However, I did not fuse with it and specially left it for you. Azure Dragon explained. How can this be? Hearing this, the masked Azura quickly waved his hand and said, I can't accept it. Since I'm giving it to you, just accept it. Why are you being so pretentious with me? Azure Dragon rolled his eyes at him in annoyance. Just accept it. You and Xiang are still young. These ultimate law inheritances can only be of greater value if they are given to you. The black-clothed middle-aged man next to him said. Hearing this, the masked Azura turned to look at the black-clothed middle-aged man and the others. The group nodded and smiled. Thank you. The masked Azura was touched. He stretched out his trembling hands and received the inheritance. His hands were trembling, not because he was excited to receive this inheritance, but because he knew that receiving this inheritance was equivalent to taking over the heavy responsibility of protecting the human race. However, he did not regret it, because even without this inheritance, he would still inherit the will of these old men in front of him and protect everyone in the Sky Cloud realm. Boom. The battle continued. After Azure Dragon finished his narration, he turned to look at Qin Feiyang and sighed. This is the situation. After listening to the whole story, Qin Feiyang's heart could not calm down for a long time. Even if the red-haired old man wanted to break the seal, the princess of the Divine Kingdom did not hesitate, and still chose to stand on the side of the Sky Cloud realm. This greatness was not something that ordinary people could compare to. Even the princess of the Divine Kingdom, an outsider, could be so responsible and open-minded. Then, as a member of the Sky Cloud realm, what did he have to worry about? Yes. There was no need to think so much. There was no need to be bound by the bloodline power. Follow the will of his heart. And his will was to protect the human race and the Sky Cloud realm. Chapter 3847. Li Feng looked up at the red-haired old man in the sky and said disdainfully, even after so long, he still can't take down Yin Xiang. It seems that this person's strength is not that great. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he turned his head to look at Li Feng. Not only was he not nervous at all, but he also looked eager to try. Then, he looked at Princess Huafeng and Daifuku again. There seemed to be a trace of disdain between the two of them. It seemed that this trip to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure had not only harvested a large number of divine items, but also broadened everyone's horizons. The strength that the red-haired old man had shown was actually not weak. The ultimate meaning of the law of destruction. In the past, no one present would be able to remain calm, because only existences at the level of the Dragon King could master the ultimate meaning of the strongest law. But in these 100 years, everyone had seen too many powerful existences in the Sky Bell Divine Treasure. For example, the undead that had condensed a body had at least mastered one ultimate meaning. Then there were the terrifying Great Demon Kings and their sovereign divine weapons. Any one of them had the strength to sweep across the Sky Cloud realm. Not to mention the Chaos Divine King and the Chaos Royal City. In their eyes, the sovereign divine weapons were like ants. These were the so-called experiences. With these experiences, everyone's mentality and mental endurance had far surpassed before. Facing the powerhouses of the Divine Kingdom, they naturally would not be as afraid as before. However, was the strength of this red-haired old man really only like this? The princess of the Divine Kingdom knew that Yin Xiang had mastered the ultimate meaning of the law of death, and that Azure Dragon and the others had sovereign divine weapons, but she was still so worried. What did this mean? It meant that the princess of the Divine Kingdom knew the strength of the red-haired old man. She knew that Yin Xiang and the others were not a match for the red-haired old man. Moreover, how could the strength of someone who could represent the Lord of the Divine Kingdom to persuade the princess of the Divine Kingdom be limited to just this? Boom. High up in the sky, the ultimate meaning of the two collided once again, showing a scene of heaven and earth shattering. The more Yin Xiang fought, the more courageous he became. His power of death swept through the world like angry waves. The young generation of the Sky Cloud realm has given birth to a monstrous genius like you. Not bad. The red-haired old man nodded with a smile as if he was praising him. When Yin Xiang heard this, he glanced at Qin Feiyang below, then looked at the red-haired old man and coldly snorted. The strength of my Sky Cloud realm is not something you can imagine. If you know what's good for you, then immediately scram back to the Divine Kingdom. Hee hee. The red-haired old man smiled. She smiled brightly. Seeing this smile, Qin Feiyang had a bad premonition. At the same time, Yin Xiang also raised his eyebrows slightly. Because he was facing the red-haired old man directly, the feeling in his heart was the most obvious. At this moment, the red-haired old man was like an awakening demon god. Just his gaze alone brought him an uncontrollable fear. In the end, he's still too young and doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The red-haired old man's eyes suddenly turned cold. A gust of death force rolled out like a tide. What? Yin Xiang's face changed abruptly. Could it be that this old man also mastered the ultimate meaning of the law of death? Rumble. Accompanied by an earth-shaking loud noise, the 18 layers of hell instantly appeared above the red-haired old man's head, exuding a heaven-destroying and earth-shattering divine power. At the same time, the ultimate meaning of the law of destruction also reappeared. 2 ultimate meanings. Yin Xiang's face turned pale. This is the strength of the Divine Kingdom's powerhouses? Sure enough, it's not ordinary. Like I said, ants will always be ants. Even if I give you a chance, you won't be able to stir up any waves. The red-haired old man's words were full of disdain. With a wave of his hand, the 2 ultimate meanings of the law of death immediately rushed toward Yin Xiang with the power to destroy the world. Who are you looking down on? Yin Xiang roared and activated the ultimate meaning of the law of death. Boom. Following closely, the yin-yang mirror appeared and instantly recovered. Although the yin-yang mirror wasn't a mid-level dominator divine weapon, it was enough to confront the ultimate meaning. Let me tell you, my sky cloud realm isn't something you can trample at will. Yin Xiang roared in anger. The 18 layers of hell and the yin-yang mirror crazily attacked. Rumble. The 3 ultimate meanings and the yin-yang mirror collided with each other. The world immediately fell into darkness, but this darkness didn't last long. Soon, a dazzling divine light erupted. The 3 ultimate meanings shattered at the same time. The yin-yang mirror was also blasted away and smashed into a mountain below, instantly destroying a large part of the mountain. There's also a dominator divine weapon? The red-haired old man was slightly taken aback. Sizing up Yin Xiang, he said indifferently, "It seems that you should be the most monstrous genius of the Sky Cloud Realm's younger generation." Me? The most monstrous genius? Yin Xiang was stunned. He couldn't help but glance at Qin Feiyang below from the corner of his eyes. The corner of his mouth faintly had a trace of self-mockery. How could he be considered a monstrous genius? The real monstrous genius was the one below. Your Highness, I didn't expect you to cultivate such a talent in the Sky Cloud Realm. In time, he will definitely become the pillar of the Sky Cloud Realm. However, his luck doesn't seem to be too good to meet me. He is destined to die in the cradle. The red-haired old man turned his head to look at the core area and said with a smile, "You dare." The voice of the Divine Kingdom's princess came. "Your Highness, no matter what, this old man can be considered as half your master. With your understanding of this old man, how can you doubt this old man's means?" The red-haired old man chuckled. "What? Half a master?" Qin Feiyang and the others' eyes trembled. They never thought that the red-haired old man's background would be so great. Who was the Divine Kingdom's princess? She was the daughter of the Divine Kingdom's master. Although he was only half a master, it was enough to prove the red-haired old man's status in the Divine Kingdom. Azure Dragon and the others finally became nervous. If it was just an ordinary powerhouse of the Divine Kingdom, with their current strength, they naturally didn't have to worry too much. However, as half a master of the Divine Kingdom's princess, it was obvious that his strength wasn't as simple as it seemed. Boom. Sure enough. Accompanied by a shocking divine power, a terrifying space-time power surged out of the red-haired old man's body. Space-time law. Yin Xiang's eyes trembled. Destruction law, death law, space-time law. This person actually mastered the ultimate meaning of the 3 strongest laws. Even the great demon kings of the Sky Bell Divine Treasure seemed to be no more than this. Everything you have was given to you by the princess. Now on behalf of Her Highness, I take back everything. You don't have any objections, right? The red-haired old man looked at Yin Xiang arrogantly. As an invader, he actually put on a high and mighty attitude. Not only Yin Xiang, But even Qin Feiyang was very unhappy. On behalf of Master? Old man, what right do you have to represent Master? Who do you think you are? Yin Xiang was furious. He grabbed the yin-yang mirror and opened the 18 levels of hell. With monstrous anger, he crazily attacked. Junior with no manners, you deserve to die. The red-haired old man's eyes turned cold. The 3 ultimate meanings appeared one after another. The heavenly eye of destruction was like an eye of the heavenly Tao suspended at the top of the sky. Rays of destructive divine light flooded all directions. The 18 levels of hell surged with divine power and shook the heavens. The ultimate profundity of the space-time laws summoned a vast galaxy. Countless stars twinkled as if it was a bright starry sky. The appearance of the 3 ultimate meanings of the 3 strongest laws caused the entire central region to tremble. Mountains and rivers collapsed one after another. The earth shattered and the void was annihilated. It was simply a scene of doomsday. However, Yin Xiang wasn't afraid at all. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he roared. Against an old man like you, I don't need manners at all. Boom. His entire body collided with the 3 ultimate meanings like a moth darting into a flame. The destructive aura surged in all directions like angry waves. Clang. The fire phoenix sword appeared with surging divine power. It protected Princess Huofeng, Qin Feiyang and the others. A group of people stared at Yin Xiang in the center of the battlefield. He didn't retreat in the face of such a terrifying expert. This courage was really admirable. However, the difference in strength couldn't be made up for by courage alone. Poof! Yin Xiang spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was like a blood-stained meteorite as he slammed into the ground with the yin-yang mirror. Accompanied by billowing dust and smoke, a deep pit that was thousands of miles long appeared. Yin Xiang lay at the bottom of the deep pit with blood all over his body. His aura was extremely weak. Even the body of the yin-yang mirror was cracked. Destroy! The red-haired old man looked down from above. As he pointed his index finger in the air, the 3 ultimate meanings immediately swooped down and blasted toward Yin Xiang, who was deep in the ground. Save Xiang! Azure Dragon shouted. Clang! The black-robed middle-aged man waved his hand and a black dagger appeared. It looked like a demon from hell with a murderous aura. Seeing this, the yellow-robed old man and the others also unleashed terrifying auras. The next moment, another 7 sovereign divine weapons appeared, their godly auras soaring into the sky as they attacked the 3 ultimate profound meanings. Of these 8 sovereign divine weapons, 6 of them including the black dagger, Qin Feiyang had seen all of them before. When they had barged into the central region, these 6 sovereign divine weapons had appeared to stop them. As for the other 2, this was the first time he had seen them. Boom. As the 8 sovereign divine weapons attacked, the red-haired old man's 3 ultimate meanings were shattered on the spot. The red-haired old man raised his eyebrows and immediately looked at the 8 sovereign divine weapons with a cold light in his eyes. Run! You are no match for him. The anxious voice of the princess of the divine kingdom sounded again. What? Even the 8 sovereign weapons aren't a match for him. Qin Feiyang was shocked. Could it be that this old man had a mid-level sovereign divine weapon? However, Yin Xiang didn't seem to hear the voice of the princess of the divine kingdom at all. He got up from the ground and his blood-stained face was filled with madness. Xing, listen to me. Run. The princess of the divine kingdom shouted anxiously again. I won't go. Wherever Master is, I will be there. In the past, it has always been Master taking care of this disciple. Now it is this disciple's turn to protect Master. Yin Xiang shook his head, and his stubborn personality was revealed. He turned to the black dagger and the other divine weapons and roared, Seniors, help me kill the enemy. Chapter 38-48. Following this roar, the weakness on his face was swept away and was replaced by endless battle intent. Boom. The ultimate meaning of the law of death appeared again. Sigh. Each one is more troublesome than the last. The yin-yang mirror sighed. If it was any other time, it would have fled. But now, it didn't retreat. It suddenly came back to life and floated beside Yin Xiang. Its terrifying aura shook the sky. The 8 sovereign divine weapons, including the black dagger, flew behind Yin Xiang, and locked onto the red-haired old man in the sky with divine might. Kill! Yin Xiang roared. He took the lead and charged toward the red-haired old man. The yin-yang mirror, the black dagger, and the other sovereign divine weapons followed closely behind. 9 sovereign divine weapons and Xiang should be enough to defeat him. Azure Dragon murmured. Qin Feiyang also stared at the red-haired old man. The red-haired old man looked at Yun Xiang and the 9 sovereign divine weapons and said coldly, "It seems that I have underestimated you. But that's all." Clang! As soon as he finished speaking, the red-haired old man waved his hand, and a thunderbolt rolled out, lighting up the sky. Everyone was surprised. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang stared at the thunder, and his pupils shrank. Inside the thunder, there was a purple gold battle axe. It flashed with lightning and was engraved with thunder patterns, exuding an unparalleled power. "Let me show you what a real sovereign divine weapon is. Thunder battle axe, crush them for me," the red-haired old man ordered. The thunder battle axe shattered the sky and charged toward Yin Xiang and the 9 sovereign divine weapons. "That's a mid-level sovereign divine weapon." Yin Xiang retreat. The blood ancestor shouted. Yin Xiang's eyes trembled slightly. He didn't expect the other party to have a mid-level sovereign divine weapon. They had stayed in the Chaos Royal City for so long, and naturally knew the power of a mid-level sovereign divine weapon. It was something that required 10 low-level sovereign divine weapons to contend with. However, Yin Xiang didn't retreat. "Mid-level sovereign divine weapon. What are you afraid of? With our current strength, we can definitely compete with it." Following his furious roar, the 18 layers of hell and the 9 divine weapons of the yin and yang mirror collided with the lightning axe. Boom! Heaven and earth, the sun and moon. A shockwave that was powerful enough to destroy everything rolled out in all directions. Even in the face of a middle-class dominator weapon, this child actually has the courage to fight? The Divine Kingdom princess watched this scene from afar, her heart filled with shock. Just what had he experienced in the Heavenly Bell Divine Treasure all these years? High in the sky. The 18 levels of hell and the 9 sovereign divine weapons clashed head-on with the lightning axe, and they were not at a disadvantage at all. This was enough to prove that the yin the divine weapon. If the yin-yang mirror and the other dominator divine weapons didn't go all out, they wouldn't be evenly matched. At the sight of this, the red-haired old man could not help but reveal a hint of viciousness between his brows as he activated the ultimate meaning of the 3 supreme laws. The blood ancestor raised his eyebrows. Originally, they were evenly matched. If the 3 ultimate intents attacked, the balance would be broken. "Let me." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Instantly, everyone looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang's strength was obvious to all. Putting aside his own powerful techniques, his sovereign divine weapons were enough to crush the thunder battle axe. "Qin Dage, don't make a move." Li Feng suddenly spoke. "What?" Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. "You're our trump card. How can we let you expose your strength so early?" Li Feng chuckled. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh. Li Feng took a deep breath, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Leave it to me. I'm confident." Seeing Li Feng's serious attitude, Qin Feiyang muttered, "Be careful." Li Feng immediately laughed and took a step into the sky. The blood ancestor shook his head helplessly. This kid was starting to get arrogant, but he was looking forward to this kid's performance. The red-haired old man looked at Li Feng suspiciously. "What are you looking at? Yin Xiang isn't the only genius in the Sky Cloud realm. Old bastard, let me see how capable you are today. How dare you be arrogant in the Sky Cloud realm?" Li Feng scolded mercilessly. The space-time law rolled over, and the ultimate intents were activated. "What?" The red-haired old man was very angry at Li Feng's rude words, but when he saw Li Feng activate the ultimate intents of the space-time law, his heart suddenly set off stormy waves. This person looked younger than Yun Xiang, but he had also mastered the ultimate intents of a supreme law. There were too many monstrous geniuses in the Sky Cloud realm these years. Boom! Li Feng waved his hand, and the ultimate intents of the space-time law immediately attacked the 3 ultimate intents of the red-haired old man. With a loud bang, Li Feng spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. The ultimate intents of the space-time law were directly shattered. Li Feng, retreat. Yin Xiang saw this and shouted. I'm not his opponent. Li Feng laughed cruelly as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes instantly turned blood red. Without turning his head, he said, You just have to pin down Thunder Battleaxe. Watch how I kill him. Yin Xiang was slightly stunned. So domineering. He didn't know Li Feng's other means, but he knew that Li Feng had mastered the ultimate intents of the slaughter law and space-time law, so he was a little suspicious. Old bastard, I'm starting to get serious. Li Feng stared at the red-haired old man. Blood surged all over his body, and in an instant, 3 identical Li Fengs appeared beside him. This was Li Feng's trump card, the puppet true body. What could this be? Not to mention Yin Xiang, even Azure Dragon and the others couldn't help but be shocked. They quickly looked at Qin Feiyang. Don't misunderstand. This isn't the 3,000 avatars. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Not the 3,000 avatars. Could it be an avatar? How can a mere avatar turn the situation around? Everyone couldn't help but frown. If you think this is an avatar, then you're wrong. The Blood Ancestor laughed. When Azure Dragon and the others heard this, they couldn't help but look up at Li Feng and immediately saw a shocking scene. The 3 puppet true bodies beside Li Feng had also activated the ultimate intents of the space-time law. Isn't this just 3,000 avatars? In their memories, only Qin Feiyang's 3,000 avatars could do this. This scene shocked even Princess Huofeng and Daifuku. Although they had been with Qin Feiyang and the others for the longest time, Li Feng's puppet true bodies had only been activated when facing Bing Rining's sneak attack, so they didn't know. The red-haired old man. Looking at Li Feng's 3 puppet true bodies, he was also shocked. Kill! Li Feng roared. He had also activated the ultimate intents of the space-time law. Together with the 3 puppet true bodies, he now had 4 ultimate intents. The 4 ultimate intents, carrying the power to destroy the world, once again attacked the red-haired old man's 3 ultimate intents. There was a loud rumble. The scene of destruction was immediately presented before everyone's eyes. The red-haired old man's 3 ultimate intents were finally defeated and shattered on the spot. Then the 4 rivers of stars formed by the 4 ultimate intents of the space-time law charged toward the red-haired old man. The ultimate intents of these 3 avatars are actually the same as his own? The red-haired old man's face was filled with disbelief. Avatars? Naive old man. Li Feng mocked him mercilessly. Boom. The 4 rivers of stars instantly drowned the red-haired old man. Yin Xiang, Azure Dragon, and the others were also dumbfounded. This was Li Feng's strength? Although they had known Li Feng for so long, their impression of him was that of an ordinary young man. His strongest technique was the secret technique that could devour the souls of the dead. It was also because of this secret technique that Li Feng could master the 2 ultimate intents of the space-time law and the slaughter law so quickly. In other words, they had never had any appreciation for Li Feng. They also did not think that he was very powerful. But they never expected that he actually had a technique like the 3,000 avatars. Just this technique alone was not something they could reach. As expected, anyone related to Qin Feiyang cannot be underestimated. Everyone sighed in their hearts. What kind of monsters were they? Then, they looked at the void that was drowned by the 4 rivers of stars. The starlight was dazzling and the red-haired old man's figure was nowhere to be seen. But they could clearly feel that the red-haired old man's powerful aura was rapidly dissipating. Facing the attack of the 4 ultimate intents head-on, even the red-haired old man would not be able to survive. However, just as they thought that the red-haired old man was definitely going to die, a terrifying divine aura suddenly erupted. The 4 rivers of stars were directly annihilated in the void. Li Feng was also sent flying on the spot. Whether it was him or the 3 true bodies of the puppets, they were all bleeding profusely. What? The group of people's expressions changed. This divine aura. Why did it seem like another mid-level dominator divine weapon? As the 4 rivers of stars were destroyed, the red-haired old man's figure gradually appeared. At this moment, he looked a little battered. His face was full of blood and his hair was disheveled. Obviously, it was caused by Li Feng and the 3 true bodies of the puppets. However, at this moment, the red-haired old man had an additional purple-gold armor on his body. Lightning surrounded it, and his aura was shocking. It can't be. This, Qin Feiyang and the others were dumbfounded. It was actually a set of armor. And judging from the aura, it was a mid-level Dominator Divine Weapon armor. Not only was there a mid-level Dominator Divine Weapon Thunder Battle Axe, but there was also an armor of the same level. It had both offense and defense. Wasn't this flawless? Terrifying. Although the red-haired old man was the first expert from the Divine Kingdom that they had seen so far, the terrifying means he had displayed were far beyond their imagination. It was no wonder that the princess of the Divine Kingdom was so anxious and kept telling them to run. If they had not made a trip to the Sky Bell Divine Treasure, they would have only been able to run for their lives. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.